Okay. All right. My hat's getting fuzzy. All right. Peace and shalom, family. It's your brother Divine Prospect, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, back in the building for another Freestyle Friday session. All praise to the Most High. We are almost entering into the Shabbat, which begins at sunset today. So prior to that, I can talk about something real quick before we get into the Shabbat. But first and foremost, I want to thank all of y'all for coming on out. Make sure you hit the like button if you're enjoying the content. Share the video everywhere. And if you're not subscribed, why are you not subscribed? Click the subscribe button. Hit the all notification so that you can get notifications. I see DB said that he got the alert from YouTube. All praise to the Most High. The algorithm started working, and I've been shadow banned because they remove content for me like at least every 6 months. They remove 1 or 2 videos from my channel, and that hurts my status in regards to the algorithm sharing my content on feeds. So also make sure you check the social folder on your Gmail accounts. If y'all got Gmail accounts, a lot of times the notifications will go there and you may not see it in your main inbox. But yeah, whenever they start removing videos like that, they tend to kind of push you closer and closer out the door. You know what I'm saying? But it's all good. Most High is going to prevail. And it is what it is. All right. So I'm going to give a few minutes for y'all to come on in. I'll be right back. Give me 1 second. All right. As y'all coming on in, get comfortable. Get you something to drink, where's my drink? Can't find my water. I'm going to have to get up and get it in a second. But get y'all something to drink, get comfortable. We are here. All praises to the Most High. Let's see what's going on. Give a couple of shout outs so far. Shout out to HaKodesh Management in the building. Shalom. They not like us. Shalom. Oh, DB, sorry I didn't get to call you. Got really busy for me. I didn't get to call you. Hopefully you're available this weekend. You got my number as well. So try to give me a call over the weekend if you're free, DB. All right. Shout out to Karima Poet in the building. C, shalom. Ocean, shalom. So shalom, brother. General question: do you subscribe to the Gospels of Mary, James, Nicodemus, Peter, or the Epistle of Barnabas, and why or why not? Okay, so let me address that real quick, and then I want to get into the show. There's some things I want to share, and then we can transition into the typical episode. I had to look for this T-shirt. As you can see, I just grabbed it out of the drawer. It's like all crinkled and stuff like that. So don't mind it. Don't get distracted by the little things. Focus on the major points at hand. All praise to the Most High. So anyway, let me add my light. Let me add my light. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna add my light, and then I'm gonna grab my water. All right. They're gonna run all the way to my living room to go get this. All right. Water of the day. Waiakia. Am I saying it right? But anyway, this is Hawaiian volcanic water. So it was extracted from a deep well in which the water goes through various sediments, layers of rock. There are purification process where it picks up trace and ultra trace minerals, and it dumps it into this reservoir. That's the well, and then they fill these bottles up with it. So if you want to get naturally alkaline water from a natural source, this is just as good as Fiji water. Okay. All right. Shout out to AJ Bethea in the building. All right, so let me get back to the question. So the question is, Shalom, brother, general question. Do you subscribe to the Gospels of Mary, James, Nicodemus, Peter, or the Epistle of Barnabas, and why not? All right. So that's a whole nother subject matter, which can require a whole show to do. And maybe I'll do one on that on, I guess, the pseudepigraphal works, which those are. And what I will say to that is the reason why I don't subscribe to them is because they have a lot of historical errors, okay, which lets me know that the time period they're supposed to be representing, it didn't happen during that time period it's supposed to be representing. Let me give you a good example of what I'm talking about. When we look at the synoptic gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke from the 1st century CE, they have all of the name places right. So during the 1st century CE, do various excavations, we know names of various cities all throughout what we call Palestine, Israel, whatever the case may be, right? So we know what cities existed during that period of time. That's number one. Number two, we also have various scrolls, papyri, artifacts, epigraphs, registers, right? Especially from Rome and others. So we know the frequency of names. For example, Yochanan was one of many names, and we know Yochanan is a popular name. But there were also other names used in the Bible that were popular in the 1st century CE that went out of popularity in the 2nd century CE and the 3rd century CE. Okay. Also, certain cities no longer existed going into the 2nd and 3rd century CE. If I read a gospel that does not historically represent people's names, places, routes, idioms that were common in the 1st century CE, which the gospels we have today are in the quote unquote canon, I have every reason to dismiss those as being inauthentic. Okay. So a lot of these external gospels that we encounter, they tend to have names based on various regions which they found. A good example is the Nag Hammadi Library, which has a plethora of additional gospels. It is not historically accurate to the time period in which it's speaking about, especially if it's talking about Yeshua, Jesus, Yahushua, Yeshai, etc. Right? So it is something that is written much later. And not only that, a lot of the name places used in there, the terms, the idioms, and even the frequency of names were uncommon in the 1st century CE or alien to the location in the 1st century CE that the text is supposed to represent. Therefore, it was written by a later author that had little to no firsthand experience with the places and the people in which they are writing about. So it's a second, maybe tertiary hand account in regards to what happened, as opposed to somebody like Matthew. So the reason why who scholars call Jewish Christians source the source, right, the primary source in which the Jewish Christians text that they had, right, from patristic sources, etc. They were said to have a Hebrew gospel of Matthew, or a gospel according to the Hebrews, something along those lines. And the reason why they value this is because Matthew was a Jew. Matthew was a publican, which means he was literate. And Matthew was also a disciple who became an apostle. So whatever he wrote about the events that occur, he did so as an eyewitness, and everything he wrote was historically accurate. Now, a secondary source, or even a tertiary source, who wrote about these events, Luke, who wrote about a gospel, and he wrote that book of Acts, is also historically accurate, which shows that he existed during that time period in which it was written, okay, which the account is said to have happened, all right? So because we have these details in the places that we expect to find these names, these details, these idioms, these phrases, these long words, etc., we can situate it historically in the region in which the text is referring to. But when you don't have those items, then that means you are unfamiliar with everything that is being referenced there. Like, I'll give you an example. If I write a book about 18th century England, I've never been to England in my life ever, and I write a book about the kings during that time period who ruled and reigned at that time period in the 8th century, 18th century CE, or 17th century CE, right? And I write based on hearsay, based on what I may have seen on TV, based may have what I've read in a book somewhere, whatever. And I decide that I'm going to put a book together. Well, a historian of that region and of that time who spent ample amount of years there, maybe completing a doctoral dissertation there or whatever, is going to come back and read my stuff and say, wait a second, this is inaccurate. This is ahistorical. This is an anachronism. This is he's able to tell that how much of my dissimilarity is in my works as opposed to historically what would have been represented during that time period, right? So that's hopefully a good example of why. One of the main reasons why I dismiss them as being authentic, right? And why I don't subscribe to them as being part of canon. All right. So hopefully that was sufficient. Let me know if that was good enough, Ocean. And thank you for your question. I appreciate it. All right. Shout out to Ocean. You my brother in Dallas, right? All praises to the Most High. I know you are. All right. All right. Thank you so much, brother. I appreciate that question. Let me see. Shalom to RLM Hawaii. Shalom to Avdiel. Are there any ancient artifacts or anything tangible from Yosef time up to Moses time of the first Exodus to die in advance? Yes, and I would recommend you look at Manfred Bietek's work. So he is the Austrian archaeologist that's done most of the primary work in what we will call Goshen, biblical Goshen. It's called the Varus. If you want some of his work, go to the Patreon. And on the Patreon, I have several sources of his work on the Patreon where he goes into detail. So much so. Now, mind you, he's not a Christian. He's not a believer or anything like that. But he saw so much data there. He's like, yo, I got to write something about this. Like, it's the parallels to the Bible, the biblical account is so uncanny that I have to write about this phenomenon and give some form of justification or explanation for the data that I see in archaeological record, from our digs and excavations to what is written in the text. That's how convinced he was, and that's why he wrote extensively on this subject matter. Now, granted, he did position the Exodus, a later Exodus during the time of Ramses or the Ramside dynasty, which I don't subscribe to. I put it earlier, much earlier, to Amenhotep III around that time period. Amenhotep II, not the third. Amenhotep II's time period is where I rendered the Exodus about 1446 BCE. So I go with that chronology. And they entered into the land in about 1406 BCE. That's what I teach, and that's what I share on here. But the key thing is being that he is agnostic in regards to the Bible, that he actually had to write something as a scholar to account for the data that he found, which had an uncanny parallel to scripture, speaks volumes. Also, there is a series called Patterns of Evidence. If you're interested, I would recommend you go and watch the documentary Patterns of Evidence, the Exodus, and Patterns of Evidence, Moses. Watch both those documentaries, and that will fill in a lot of the blanks for what you're speaking about, right? I brought that information out back in 2015. So I seen it in 2014. I sat down with what's his name? Oh man, I forgot what's his name. What's the guy's name? I'm about to say Donald Redfoot. It definitely wasn't Donald Redfoot. I wish I had time with Donald Redfoot too, but it wasn't Donald Redfoot. It'll come to me. But I sat down with him in 2014 and interviewed him. It's on this channel. And he was the key figure because I went to the event, right? One of the events that they had for the Patterns of Evidence film. And I sat down and interviewed him. And then I used some of that information when I did the Kemet on Trial debate back in 2015. So if you're interested in it, I would recommend that you will go and check that out. All right. All right. So let's see. School of Skills. Now, this is a reason why I would block you, right? And one of those reasons why I would block you is because you leave weird, right? When you're given the opportunity to have a conversation with me, you say, what about the book of Enoch and Jubilees, which were found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, DSS, Enoch and Jubilees just cut you up. You say stuff like that, which is very strange, which is very weird, and which is just out of place. I've been teaching on the book of Enoch and Jubilees since 2013. I have content on this channel since 2014 where I'm talking about the book of Enoch and Jubilees. I've done some work with the SBL on these actual documents that you're referring to second, third, and fourth hand. I'm thoroughly familiar with this. What are you talking about? When I talked about the calendar, I addressed the Enochian calendrical model, and I'd say why the model that we've reconstructed is more historically accurate than that model. The book of Jubilees is commentary of Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, or Midrash, to Exodus 15. It gives you commentary. The objective is to reorient you back to the Jubilees, to get you back on Yah's calendar or Yah's time, because we are out of sync with the time by following the sun, following the moon, and that we need to reorient ourselves back to establishing and re-emphasizing the sun and the Jubilees. And once you understand the Jubilees, it goes into the book of Melchizedek, that you'll understand when the advent of Melchizedek and the Melchizedek scroll, when he's going to return with the sons of light. Well, I don't understand what you're talking about. I have over 20 books over there about the book of Enoch, Jubilees, and the Dead Sea Scrolls. What are you talking about right now? I'm confused. I have a whole Dead Sea Scrolls collection over there. Would you like me to go grab it for you and start reading it from you? Or would you like to go on the Patreon and see the over 30-something books that I have on it on the Dead Sea Scrolls, Enoch and Jubilees? When I did my lecture last year on Shechem and Dinah, I brought up the book of Jubilees and the book of Jasher. And I showed you why we cannot rely on it as canon, why it's nothing more than Midrash. If you're saying it cuts me up, then why don't you come on here and show me? You say Enoch is showing Christ is pre-existent. Enoch does not show that Christ is pre-existent. You don't understand the Son of Man motif. That's the problem. Now, if you want to discuss it, I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. I'm going to share the link with you, and then we're going to get on with the rest of the show. There's the link. Click the link, and let's have a dialogue. You type it in there, we're about to put you in the corner. You're about to be in timeout. So if you don't click the link and you want to keep spamming the chat when everybody else is trying to get their comments seen who are genuine, we're going to put you in the little kitty corner, and you're going to go in timeout. All right? You can come back out of timeout. After you're in timeout, that's fine. Just behave yourself and stop doing weird comments. You can leave comments. I don't care if you're critical or whatever. That's fine. If it cuts me up because you're trying to, I guess, demonstrate that I don't know anything about this stuff. This is crazy. Yo, I've been doing this ministry on this YouTube channel since 2014. The first video on this channel is 2014. We have over 700 plus videos on this channel, right? I've covered the Dead Sea Scrolls, Enoch, and Jubilee an extensive amount of times. Matter of fact, just go to the channel, go to the search bar for the channel, and just type in Enoch, type in Jubilees, see what comes up. You know what's so interesting too? The program that we have for debt elimination, credit repair, and financial planning is called Jubilee Manumission. You know, this is so hilarious. But anyway, I digress. But again, I'm giving you 5 minutes of fame, give you an opportunity to click the link to have a conversation. And if you don't want to do that and you want to keep spamming the chat, then I give the mods and the several of them in the chat, they get the green light to go ahead and put you in the kitty corner, put you in timeout. All right. So we're going to keep on moving. All right. Brother Divine, who are the Gullah people in regards to tracing lineage back to the 12 tribes, Tada in advance? So see, I did a whole lecture on that. Just type in Divine Prospect, Gullah Geechee. And I did a whole lecture on that. All right. I talk about the spirit of Maccabees. Was it the spirit of Maccabees? I think so. Oh man, I said Maccabees again. Man, this is crazy. Maccabees on the whole period and what's the Dead Sea Scrolls. But anyway, so yeah, go back and check that out, my brother, and see if that answers your questions in regards to that. Okay. All right. Yeah, anytime, King, anytime. So let me give a couple more shout outs. Shout out to You Love Yah, Shalom, Apothecary Custom, Shalom, Immanuel, Shalom, Feed the Spirit, Shalom, School of Skills, Shalom. Let's see, who else we got? Rufus Kemp, Shalom, Yim Yahu, Dawid, Bain Yochanan, Shalom. Thank you, David Roll. Thank you so much. Yim Yahu is David Roll. That's who I interviewed. Okay. Marlo Eugene, shalom. Jay Showtime TV, shalom. Make sure you guys are hitting that thumbs up. Make sure you're hitting the thumbs up. Make sure you're sharing this video on all your social media platforms. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe. Click on the bell notification. Select all, so that way you can be notified when we are live. Shout out to Derek Kimball in the building. Shalom. Calhoun 22. Shalom. K Israel. Shalom. Yashar Napaj. Shalom. All right. All right. So I see y'all have some questions and stuff. I wasn't trying to answer any questions just yet. Just wanted to just dive in some stuff real quick. All right. First thing I want to touch on, right, is the calendar is available. So those of you who are not aware, shout out to Gels MSK as well. I see you. The calendar is available. So anybody that's interested in the calendar, it is available. You can get it in a plethora of ways. We have a post on YouTube, on this YouTube channel, on the community tab. You can go through there and you can go to the post with it and get it from there. I also have it posted on Facebook. Follow me on Facebook, get it from there. And it's also on the Patreon. You go on the Patreon and get it from there. All right. So you can get the calendar if you want it, right? If you're interested in the calendar as well, you can't find it anywhere else, go to kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, email us, and we will get you set up with the calendar. All right. So the calendar is available, and the calendar that we have trumps the Enochian model, trumps the Jubilee model. It trumps all of that. And if somebody wants to have a conversation on that, they can. I reached out to Brother Akpalau. He said that he would join, but he might be sleeping now because, man, he's in Kenya, right? He's in a whole nother country, so he gets a whole pass. Oh wait. Let me know if y'all can hear me better. I had to switch the mic. I don't know why it was switched there. Does the mic sound better? Hit 1. If the mic sounds better, hit 1. If the mic sounds better, hit 1. If the mic sounds better, hit 1. Before we get into this. All right. Shout out to Love is the Way. Shout out to DJ in the building. What's going on, DJ? All right. All right. So let's go ahead and get into the calendar. So it trumps that Enochian calendar. It trumps any calendar from Hillel II. And the reason why it trumps these calendars, because from my perspective, it is more historically accurate. School of Skills, if you and your buddies are following the Enochian model and you have a whole Enochian calendar, yeah, you need to drop it ASAP. Let's have a little conversation. Click the link. Let's have a conversation and we can discuss it. Let me know if you want to do so. All right. All right. So the calendar is available. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the calendar real quick. Let me see. The books. Yes, I have 5 books on women in ancient Israel, and it addresses this. Matter of fact, I'm gonna do you a solid. It is on Patreon, but I'm gonna give you one of those books right now. I'm gonna drop it in the chat, okay? And this should help you with that. Let me grab one of the many and see. Hopefully, it should be able to help. Where is it? Oh, that's what I forgot to put. All right. Let's see which one I want to share. Let me share this one. There we go. I'm gonna share this one with you. I'll drop this one in the chat. All right, the audio sounds better. Great. Yeah, so what was happening was the mic from my webcam was the default mic instead of this Rode mic that I have here. So I had to swap that real quick. And I think that's what happened on my last live stream. And that's why the audio quality wasn't that great. I wasn't too happy about it. But there, subsequently, 22, the link is in the chat. Click on the link and download that book. And again, if you go to the Patreon in the search box, type in Women, Ancient Israel, and you'll see the books and resources available. All right. Okay. All right. So again, the calendar is out. Shout out to the Most High for the KHM Ancient Pre-Exilic Israelite Calendar 2025 edition. Right. Again, you can get it. What I'm going to also do. So Abdiel, I think I answered that for you. You said, what was the source? So let me put it in the chat. There you go. And the other one is going to be from and Manfred Bietek is the Austrian archaeologist who does the work or did the work at Avaris, which is the biblical Goshen. So if you go to the Patreon, you type in Manfred Bietek, you'll see his sources come up. Okay. All right. So let me make getting the calendar easier to those of you. If you're on the Patreon, you'll get access to the calendar. The post is there. You can get it if you're on the community tab on this channel. You'll be able to see the post for it as well. If you're on Facebook, you'll see it there as well. I didn't put it on Instagram or TikTok yet, but I will. But what I'm also do is drop the link in the chat. Click the link if you want the calendar, and then I'll get the calendar out to you. Okay. So let me show you the calendar real quick. Let me show you the calendar real quick. Show you the first. Now, in regards to the calendar, there was a couple of date changes. Not many, but it was just one day off. I'm gonna explain to you what I mean by that real quick, and then we can get back to the Q&A. Okay. We can get back to the Q&A. Hold on one second. All right, let's share. All right, so yeah, hopefully that answers the question, Abdiel. Let me know if it does. Shout out to Panther Denoir. Shalom. Man, we had like 70 people in here. I don't know what just happened. 27 people dropped off. It's probably because I said that the calendar that we use is a bit more superior than the other calendars. I didn't mean to offend anybody. Listen, I said this all the time as my preface. If you are keeping Yah's feast, I don't care what calendar you use. Use it, keep it as a memorial unto him, and keep those statute laws and commandments. All right. So that's what I'm gonna say to you. Right. So don't be offended that I said that, but I'm willing to have conversation with anybody who subscribes to a different calendrical model than the one we were able to reconstruct here at KHF. All right. Shout out to Mars Green. Thank you for the notion. When did Yasharel start wearing sackcloth? Well, wearing sackcloth and sprinkling ashes on your head and sitting and weeping like that is a Semitic custom. Okay. So they picked it up through their Semitic customs prior to even being Israelites. That custom exists, as we can see in scripture, going back to the time of Job. Job was either contemporary of Abraham or he lived before Abraham. But as we can see, Job, he was in sackcloth and ashes and he was mourning. When the prophets go out, they're in sackcloth and ashes. You know what I'm saying? When they're mourning, when somebody dies, people dress in sackcloth, put themselves in ashes, and they mourn the dead. This is a Semitic custom. It's not particularly unique to Israelite culture, but it's something that the Israelites adopted. So I would say this was going on in the Bronze Age period, right? And then it carried over into the Iron Age period. So hopefully that answers your question, okay? So Chazak, Magan, Shalom. Shalom to James Lockhart. I see you. Shalom. So, man, y'all don't want me to do my intro. I'm trying to go into the calendar and all stuff. All right, it's cool. All right. So Kazakh, in regards to the Pharaoh that did not know Joseph. So when the text said there was a Pharaoh that arose that did not know Joseph, right? It could be referring to one of two phenomenons, right? It could either be referring to, matter of fact, let me pull it up real quick. Let's go over this. Let's go to Exodus chapter 1. Okay, it looks like 15 people came back. I had to apologize. That's crazy. All right, it's all good. I'm messing with you. All right, so check it out, right? Exodus chapter 1, right? Now, watch this. This is very, very important, okay? We're going to read this, and I'm going to give you my perspective on this, okay? Exodus chapter 1, or Shemot chapter 1. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came to Egypt with Jacob, each with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin. Dan and Naphtali, Gad and Asher. All the descendants of Yaakov were 70 persons. Yosef was already in Mizraim. Then Yosef died, and all his brothers and all that generation. But the people of Israel were fruitful and increased greatly. They multiplied and grew exceedingly strong, so that the land was filled with them. All right. So it says here that Joseph passed in verse 6, and all his brothers and all that generation. What was the generation? The patriarchs, the 12 sons of Jacob, right? They all died, right? However, their generations after them continued to multiply and were fruitful and it was exceedingly strong, right? And the land was filled with them. We actually see this happen in the archaeological record in the city of Avaris, where the biblical Goshen is posited to be, okay? But in verse 8 says, now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Yosef. And he said to his people, behold, the people of Israel too many and too mighty for us. Now let's stop right there. Now, depending on where you put these events at, I put these events occurring in the late Bronze Age period, right? So depending on where you put these events at, will determine whatever. But if you're interested on where I put all of this, I did a lecture on this channel called Crows on a Straw Man. Crows on a Straw Man. And then I did another lecture. What was that lecture called? The Minority Report. So look at the Minority Report and look at Crows on a Straw Man. And admins, grab those videos for me and drop them in the chat, please. And in those theories, I actually go into detail about this, right? In regards to my findings and my perspective. I brought these out back in 2015, and I still stand on that perspective, right? 2015, I brought out Minority Report. 2017 is when I did Crows on a Straw Man, okay? So anyway, so you can look into that if you want more technical details as to why. I also did a lecture dealing with, what's that, Exodus chapter, Exodus chapter 12, 46, 13. Not sure. The one that talks about how many Israelites actually left out of Egypt. Some say it's 1 million, some say it's 3 million. Definitely was not that much. It was under 90,000 people that left out of Egypt. It was not 1 million, 2 million, 3 million people did not leave out of Egypt. That's not what the text says, number one. Your translations may say something like that, and or somebody may have interpreted for you like that. But 1 to 3 million people did not leave out of Egypt. It was under 100,000, more preferably under 96. It was about 60 to 90,000 people that left out of Egypt. All right. And from the 12 sons, their wives, and their first immediate children, going from that small load of 70 that went in, all the way to about 60 to 90,000 in ancient times, that is huge. By today's standards, it may not be, because we're familiar with metropolises that are millions and millions of people, and cities that have millions and millions of people. It was not like that back then. If you had 1 million people in a place, that was abnormal, right? But 60 to 90,000 is more accurate, and I actually break down in that lecture why I say it was that amount of people, okay? But anyway, so when it says, now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. So during this period of time, right, Joseph comes into Egypt with his family of 70, or 70 altogether. They come into Egypt before the Hekakasawet, before the Hyksos kings takes over Egypt. All right. They are Semites. They are not the Hyksos. They are Semites living in the region when the Hyksos come in. And then the Hyksos is driven out. So more than likely, because the Hyksos are Semitic, and they probably would have been familiar with Yosef and Yosef's people in there, this would not have been the king, the new king, who did not know Joseph, because they would have been Semitic. They would have been familiar with the Semitic tides of the vizier that would have been in that region, et cetera, et cetera. So they're driven out by Amos the first, right? Kamos and Amos the first. They're driven out. And then the Egyptians from the south come back to the north and set up shop. When they get up there to kind of assess the situation when the Hyksos was ruling from, they see all these Semites there. Like, oh, this is crazy. They see all these Semites there. That king that would come up from the south to the north, he would be unfamiliar with Yosef. He wouldn't tell the difference between the different groups that was living there. He would see them all the same, even though they were different ethnic groups of Semites living there, right? The king from the south, the Nasut Biti, wouldn't know the difference, right? So he did not know Joseph. He's coming to expect to see what's going on in this region. He sees all these Semites. He's like, yo, we got to put them to work. So in the archaeological record, he goes up there and he has these people there build these storage cities. And the reason for these storage cities is that the king will come from the south to like where the thieves areas at or whatever, come from the south. He will sail downriver north. It's crazy based on elevation. Downriver north, right? And he would stop in the Pelusiac region of the Nile, which is where the Nile River branches out, right? And in that region of where we call Goshen, where it's called Avaris by Manfred Betek and others, and that and from the Egyptian record, in that region, they would then dock there, load up on grains and supplies, and then continue from off of there into the Mediterranean onto the coastal plain of what we know as Israel today or Palestine. Okay. So what they did was they put those Semites and some Nubians and some Libyans, mostly Nubians and Semites, but the Semites were way more people than the Nubians and Libyans. The Libyans and Nubians may have been part of the mixed multitude, right? But there was way more Semites there than Libyans and than the Nubians, right? So what the Pharaoh did was he put them to work to build these storage cities, which the scripture is going to reference, but the scripture speaks of it and anachronistically, right? It speaks of it, but he puts them into work on administrative projects, right? State administrative projects, and not just the storage silos, but there was other projects that he put them to work on, right? So this is what we see in the archaeological record, and then we see the literary record reflecting that, right? Where it says, and he said to his people, behold, the people of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply. Watch this. And if war breaks out, they join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land. So the enemies of the Nasu at this time, it's not going to be, this is not the Hyksos saying this, because the Semites are not going to mingle in with the native Egyptians. They're just not going to do that. The situation you see with Moshe has a Midian wife and he has a Cushite wife, right? Moshe mixed in. Leviticus 24, there's an Israelitish woman who had a son by an Egyptian man, right? Again, more fingerprints showing us who this mixed multitude is, right? It was atypical outside of what Joseph and Asenath, it was atypical for the Israelites or Semites to mingle in with the Egyptians. Egyptians typically look down upon the Semites and did not want to have any dealings with them. So like when you have the situation with Joseph, it's because Joseph was high up in the hegemony, high up in the hierarchy and the strata of power that he was able to marry a high priest who was an Egyptian's daughter and have children, right? But the Egyptians looked down upon them as simple goat herders because technically the upper echelon of the elite rulership of Egypt, right, which would be the nobility, the priest, and the king, right, or what we call the great house of Pharaoh, right, they were literate. They can read, they could write. The majority of Egypt could not. However, there were no Semites that were coming into Avaris that actually left anything of writing behind. So if somebody wrote anything, like when we actually accredit Moses to the authorship of the Torah, right, the first 5 books of Moshe or the Chumash or whatever, it's because a scribe took his authorship and a scribe put everything down. A scribe did the redactions and so forth. So who was part of that tribe of scribes? Were the Levites, were the tribe of scribes, right? The Levites were the tribe of scribes. So Joseph, when he was in Egypt, he was trained and educated in the Egyptian way. So he learned how to read. He learned how to write because he was in Pharaoh's house. He was the vizier. As an administrative official, he has to know how to read and write, right? They use hieratic script in order for them to do administrative stuff, communicate administratively. And the lingua franca of the world at that time politically, as we can see from Akhenaten, was in Akkadian, right? That's what was written from the Amarna tablets was written in Akkadian, right? So Joseph would have more than likely taught a tribe, one of his brothers' children, or whatever. Literacy would have been known amongst them, right? And that would have been passed down by the time we got to Moshe and Aaron, and then the Levites. They would have been the literate group, right? So they were the ones that have been the scribes that were working behind Moses. But here in verse 10, it's not the Egyptians. It was the Egyptians here is referring to the Hekakasuet, or the Hyksos, the shepherd kings, were their enemies that they just drove out. And they're concerned that the Semites, the Israelites included, are multiplying to the point where they may deal shrewdly with them, or they may deal more politically with them, because they can see they got strength in numbers and multiply. And if there's a war, they would join the Hyksos kings who previously ruled over them, right? And then they would leave out the land, which means you have a smaller workforce. So they said, look, we got to do something to keep this under control. And this is exactly what they did. And the text then says they built for Pharaoh store cities, Pithom and Ramses, again, which reflects what we see in the archaeological record. All right. But it says, but the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread abroad, and the Egyptians were in dread of the people of Israel. Okay. So let me grab something real quick. Okay, let's go to Genesis chapter 46. And I'm going to read this, right? This is starting at verse 28. Jacob and Joseph reunited. He had sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to show the way before him in Goshen, and they came into the land of Goshen. Then Joseph prepared his chariot and went up to meet Israel, his father, in Goshen. He presented himself to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. Israel said to Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen your face and know that you are still alive. Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, I will go up and tell Pharaoh and will say to him, my brothers and my father's household who were in the land of Canaan have come to me. Verse 32. And the men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of livestock, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. Verse 33. When Pharaoh calls you and says, what is your occupation? Verse 34. You shall say, your servants have been keepers of livestock from our youth until now. And it says, both we and our fathers, in order that you may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians. The Egyptians were an agricultural society. And then when you got to the upper hegemony, where you had the great house of Pharaoh, the noblemen, the priests, and the kings, they looked down on the Semites, who were shepherds. They saw them as simple shepherds, disposable shepherds, right? Or what's called the Amu, right? From that region of the Levant. They did not respect them. This is why the Egyptians did not mingle in with the Semites. So I'm showing you the disparity between these two groups, and I'm telling you why, showing you the biblical reason and why. And what we see in the archaeological record, there wasn't a lot of intermingling. Okay, so this is just to give more information based on what I was sharing earlier. Okay, all right. Okay. Hey, Shalom King, Smoke Reloaded. Shalom King. DP, thank you for getting back to me about my wife need for the paperwork. You are a true pillar in our community. I always refer outsiders to you. Thank you, my brother. Need the paperwork. I think you're referring to religious exemption, right? Or religious accommodation. If that's what you're referring to, please forward me the email right now, so that way I can start it and me or my admins can take a look at it and we can give it higher priority. Okay. I appreciate your patronage, my brother, and your kind words. All praise to the Most High. Okay. All right. All right. Let me see. Hopefully I answered that. Ocean, I ordered the calendar, but wasn't sure when I received it. The confirmation didn't say, oh, you'll be getting it today. You'll be getting it today. You get it this evening. Okay. You'll get it this evening, my brother. All right. Thank you for your patronage. All right. Anybody else? If anybody else is interested in getting the calendar, I'm gonna drop the link in the chat. Click the link in the chat. Let me get the link in the chat, and you can order the calendar that way. Okay. All right. So let me take an intermission real quick from answering questions. Let me transition to dealing with the calendar. Then I'm gonna talk about the music thing going on because I decided to get into my side project of something that I've been planning and working on for several years now. But let me give you the link real quick, and then we're gonna transition to that, and then we're gonna pick back up on the questions. Okay, if you have questions after that, because I'll be talking a little bit about the calendar so you can see how it works. And then when I go into the songs and so forth, I'm gonna show you how the shop works in Patreon in case you want to purchase it and you want to actually download the songs, etc. So let me get into all of that because some of that is controversial. Both the calendar and the music thing is controversial. It's crazy because I strive for KHM to be on the cutting edge of innovation. If we can utilize tools and methods, etc., that can enhance the way we worship Yah, the way we build the community, Yah's community for his people, the way that we can provide more product or increase production, the more that we can be more efficient and proficient at what we do. A lot of times those methods are shunned. Those methods are glossed over. Those methods are ignored. Those methods are contended with. And the reason for that is because people truly don't understand. Everybody's not a visionary, right? Everybody can't see these things. Like when the calendar situation came up and y'all burdened me with that task, I didn't want to do it because I already had a calendrical system. You know what calendrical system I was following at the time? Hey, I actually did a lecture where I explained that I actually followed the Enochian calendar. Yo, it's crazy that some people just don't understand the history on this channel. It's crazy. 2015, I was following the Enochian calendar. But anyway, so when y'all burdened me with this, I said, man, I got to go back from scratch and do this thing from the ground up. And we did it. And I presented it in it was a 7-hour-long lecture broken up in three videos. And I put out a ton of information, ton of data, right? Where I even addressed the Enochian calendar, right? And when I did that and I shared it, it seemed like it was revolutionary. People thought, oh, you're doing something different. You're doing a new thing. But then look what happens. Over the years, people go back and inspect it and say, wow, after I did my lecture in June, later on in the summer of that year, guess what? IUIC decided to start following the full moon. We was already teaching that since I think the end of 2014, beginning 2015. I was still holding on to the Enochian calendar, but I was looking at this new model, which is not really new. It's just a reconstructed model. And then when y'all put it on me, I'm like, wow, people are going to go crazy. It's going to be controversial. But I said, you know what? Yeah, okay. You tell me to do it, I'll do it. And then we did it. Revolutionary. When we brought out the RBG Hebrew thing, everybody started getting on the wave. It was revolutionary, right? When we started doing our programs, right, and doing it the right way, the appropriate way, and using names from scripture for the programs we did, it was revolutionary, right? When we decided that we're going to take this calendrical model and make an actual calendar, we did it. It was revolutionary. So many things we did is on the precipice of innovation, being a visionary, seeing things before they happen, getting involved in think tanking and social engineering to get the people of Yah back on that ancient path that he intends for us to be on. A lot of the lectures and the content that we have brought into the community, like with the divine council and dealing with the Sabbath and things of those natures, all of these things sounds like off the whim or whimsical innovations, and they're not. They are a reconstruction of things from the past that we're just modernizing for us so that we can prepare for the future. And sometimes when you're so revolutionary, you're so far ahead that when people are looking back, they see you, but that's because you already ran a lap and you're coming back up around them. And they're like, well, how'd you do that? And so forth. It's because I've learned a technique. The technique is through prayer and fasting. You realize that you don't have to appease no one but Yah, right? and that it's okay to be wrong. You understand that humility is at the centerpiece of what we do here, right? And it's because we're humble under Yah, we're able to break the mold, and we're able to be again at the arrow's edge of innovation, right? The tip of the arrow. And I'm okay with that. And again, whenever you are a revolutionary, whenever you're on the front lines, whatever you are initiating change, you're going to get the brunt of everything before anybody else gets it behind you, right? So I want to say that because I'm about to discuss something that is controversial, but I'm explaining to you why, right? And I'm going to be honest and forthright, okay? So before I do that, let me drop the link. Let's get into the calendar, talk about that, which is controversial, and then move on to the music, right? So those of you who have been following me on social media, those of you part of the Patreon, you already know what I'm talking about in regards to the music, right? We're going to get into that in a second, all right? So I just wanted to put that out there as a preface before I get started, all right? So, hey, if anybody's interested in the calendar, the link is here in the chat. Click the link, get you a calendar, okay? Now, let me go over this real quick with you. See if I got it up. Okay, and what I'm going to do also is, for those of you who are unaware of the music, I'm going to preview it for you real quick. If you're interested in actually getting it and purchasing it and downloading it, I'll show you where the shop is at on Patreon. You can access it from your phone, or you can access it from the website. I'm trying to open up this file. What's going on? All right. Well, I probably could just use this then, since that PDF is not opening up. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Here we go. Okay. All right. So this is the calendar. This is the cover of the calendar. This is the first month with the images that we have here. See the full moon up here. Also, let me say this as well, and I wrote an academic blog on Patreon about this. The pink moon usually brings in the beginning of the year for us. And the turn of the year happens at the harvest moon. The pink moon and the harvest moon are super moons. And I did a academic blog saying, can you tell what season of the year it is simply by the moon? Super moons will show you when you get to spring and when you get to fall. All right. So that's very important. I did a whole academic blog on this on Patreon. You may want to go check that out. All right. All you got to do is type in pink moon in the search field, and that blog will come up. Okay. All right. So here, let's go into the nitty gritty of this calendar. Okay. So the evening of the 12th of April 12th brings in the full moon. And then that will also bring in the first Hebraic day, which is an evening and morning. So we will mark this as this right here as day one, beginning in the evening of this calendar, the calendar that we're layering on top of the Gregorian calendar. But the Gregorian calendar is the evening of the 12th, and the day portion of the 13th, right? It's all part of this day one of the Hebrew calendar. So once we have the evening, the next day is the first day marker to indicate the beginning of the year, right? So we count day one, day two. Look, I'm gonna count via the sun, right? Because I want to cater to those Enochian fans out there, right? Shout out to my brothers and sisters following the Enochian calendar. So let's use the sun on this case. Day one, day two, day three, day four, day five, day six, day seven, day 8, day 9, day 10, where the lamb is prepared on day 10, day 11, day 12, day 13, day 14. So this day right here, day portion, is the day portion of what we call Passover, right? So Passover itself comes in on the evening of the 25th, which is the 14th day, right? Because day begins that evening. On the 14th day, so you got the lamb, you feed him all up into this part, you prepare him, and then at twilight, which is the evening, right, where the 14th day transitions to the 15th day, where the 15th day that brings in the first day of unleavened bread comes in, you slaughter the lamb in the twilight hours, and then you eat the lamb along with unleavened bread, bitter herbs, and wine, right? That's your typical meal, right? Your Seder meal, okay? And then you count from there. This will be your sabbatical day, which is the day portion of the 27th would be your sabbatical day. However, for most people, because it's Sunday, they don't have to work on that day. But some people, first responders and others, they may have to work on that day, right? But this is a sabbatical day for you, right? And you'll count 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me go down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that is your week, your feast of unleavened bread. Okay. So what happens after this, because this falls on a Sabbath, it is the following Sabbath that is going to be your feast of first fruits, right? Your following Sabbath into that Sunday, which would be here on the 11th, right? The day portion of the 11th, and you would count from here 49 days. So it'll be the Sabbath here, right? But the next day, the next portion day, which will be Sunday, you count your 49 days from here, and that would bring you to Shavuot, right? Or Pentecost, right? Or Feast of Weeks, okay? Now, I have several icons on certain days, like even this icon here, right? You see this? It shows you about the spring harvest, the wheat harvest, right? The barley harvest is going to occur sooner here on March 21st. You get your barley harvest, okay? That's why when people have these feast days before the barley harvest, that is wild, because we know the barley was ripe before the Exodus. So there's no way that you can have a feast day when the barley is not ripe, because you have to eventually give some of that barley and then give some of that wheat to the priest for a feast of first fruits. And you have to use some of that barley to make unleavened bread. See, we have to do it based on how they did it in pre-exilic times when they were relied on the land, not on modern day manufacturing, processing, and distribution. Because I can always go into the store and grab me some flour and make some unleavened bread. Any day of the year I can do that, right? But would that be historically accurate? No. So we have to look at these harvests in Israel to say, okay, did the wintry rains pass already? And is the barley harvest ripe? Because we see when the plague of hail came down, it destroyed the barley because the barley was ripe in the ear. The barley was ready to be plucked and it was destroyed. But the wheat, it said, the wheat was not ready yet. So therefore, it was not stiff enough to be brittle and break like the barley. You also have spelt and flax. So these 4 harvests are very important. You have to look agriculturally at these items because they're going to help you to determine if it's ready for us to have the feast day or not. Okay. So we have these icons on certain days. We have an explanation on this side of what these icons are, right? Turtle Grove migration, rainy season has ceased, spring equinox has passed, star constellation, right? Spring harvest, right? And then we have scriptures. And if you look at these scriptures, right, we have everything here. If you see Leviticus, you have Genesis, Exodus, Joshua, Leviticus, everything is here, right? And even the Antiquity of the Jews, book 5 from Josephus. So what we try to do is we try to show you visually, right, by the way we set up Hebraic day 1, Hebraic day 2, show you how that overlays onto the week that we have in the Gregorian calendar, and then give you scripture justification for everything that we're showing you here, and then also show you different icons in the legend that we have on the different dates and what they signify. And we have that all throughout. This is a 12-month calendar, which should hold you over until the next year's Passover or next year's day one, right? And the reason why, because initially I didn't want it to be 12 months, but people said, oh, we want to keep, Purim, or we want to keep, the Hanukkah and others. So I said, okay, I'll extend out the dates, because people also said they want the calendar for year-round civil duties as well, because you can use it as a civil calendar as well. So I said, okay, let's extend it out. So shout out to my brother Seth. He came up with the suggestion and the idea, not to give him the green light. He went ahead and extended it. So that's why we have 12 months in this calendar. So you technically can use it between now and next year. Okay. So hopefully this goes over that. Now, if there's any questions or anything in regards to what I just showed you, you can ask me in the chat and I'll try to address it. And I'll try to address it briefly. But I've addressed this before. So Nazarene Hebrew Institute of Technology, Shalom Mak, the supermoon has not been cited correctly. I thought I heard you say it was cited, just coming in. Also, the barley is ripened now in Israel, according to some witnesses I corresponded. Yeah, the supermoon didn't come in yet. Supermoon is coming up. And the supermoon that comes up, what is that? When is the supermoon coming up? Next weekend, not this weekend, next weekend when the supermoon comes up, that will indicate the bringing in of the new year. That's what I was saying. The pink moon, supermoon. So it has not been spotted yet. Our year, as far as the calendar is concerned, didn't start yet. Our year starts next weekend. Daryl Thompson says, Shalom Ak, what's your take on wearing fringes daily? I have no qualms with that. Does the text say we have to wear fringes every day? No, it doesn't say that. But are we to wear fringes? Yes, that's what the text says. See, this is where halakha comes in, where the community looks at the statute and says, okay, how do we implement it? And it's going to be different from community to community, which we see historically with the Jews, right? So my suggestion to you is wear fringes, right? However, I can't tell you the scripture says to wear it daily, because it doesn't say wear it daily, right? But we are to have it. Now, in ancient times, people would have a linen outer garment, right? Especially the men, and it would always be fringed. Today, we have more variety in clothing, so we don't really wear the things that we wore during the Iron Age period, right? So our dress is a little different. So what we do is we clips on, or we tie on these additional, what we call zeets, right? Or we add fringes to our shirts, because they didn't have shirts like we do now. They didn't have shirts like this back then, like this shirt. Oh, shout out. If y'all want living the rest life tees, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. Okay. We'll get you hooked up. So again, the way we dress today is much different than how they dress at that time. Okay. How they dress at that time is much different than how we dress today. So again, the text does not say wear it daily, because there are words for daily in scripture, but it doesn't say that for fringes. However, it would be implied, because that's how they dressed at that time. Today, because we have different garments that we wear, you may not can fringe something. You may not be able to add ZZs. You know what I'm saying? So on those days, you may not have it, right? But whenever there's a gathering, and typically when this was being said, it was being said where the Israelites were in a community together, right? In order to be in unison, and in order to be united by the Torah, we should always have our fringes in the company of our community, right? And if you can wear fringes, like sometimes I'll wear them to work, sometimes I won't wear them to work, but sometimes I will wear them to work, right? But if you can wear fringes, go ahead and do it. If you want to wear fringes, let's say to work, but your job has a strict dress code where you may not be able to wear fringes, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, and we'll get you a religious accommodation letter. Okay. So you have the freedom to wear the fringes. All right. So that's my perspective on that. And that's what I'm sharing based on what the text says. All right. All right. Hebrew Elevation Church, what do you think of the book of Enoch at Divine Prospect? Okay. So the book of Enoch, and again, I got to transition at some point, right? I see. I was reading your comment, Truth, More Truth. So the book of Enoch. So the book of Enoch is one of those connectors, those intertestamental texts that is deemed canon by some organizations and institutions, like the Ethiopic Church, that connects the Tanakh with the New Testament. From my perspective, the book of Enoch, its authenticity can be found in about 50% of the book. About 50%. The other 50% reflects works of the time period and is not antiquated. But 50% of it is antiquated. What parts of those that is antiquated? The parts of it that's antiquated would be the part where it addresses the Bene Ha Elohim or Bene Elohim, the sons of God, who are called the Watchers. Now, holy ones were known as Watchers. We see this in the book of Daniel. Daniel links the Tanakh to Enoch, and then Enoch links the book of Daniel and the Tanakh to the New Testament. The motif of the Son of Man gets developed during the intertestamental period. We see that phrase within Enoch several times, but we also see it in the book of Ezekiel, and then we also see it in other pseudepigraphal works. They mention the Son of Man. When you're on the Patreon, go to the search box and type in Son of Man. There's several sources that I have on it that will break all this down to you to the T. The idea of a Messiah figure, and this is what I try to tell brothers and sisters that don't deal with the New Testament. I tell them the key is the Son of Man motif. When you go to Daniel 7, the Son of Man is introduced figuratively to represent the saints of the Most High that will inherit the kingdom, right? However, that particular image then took on a life on its own. It's called the egregore. And that idea or concept of the Son of Man then left out of the book of Daniel and created a genre called apocalypse. Apocalyptic literature is a genre that came forth from out of the book of Daniel. The Son of Man was one of those motifs in which they started to develop this idea or concept of this Son of Man figure. The Son of Man did not pre-exist in the book of Daniel chapter 7. It did not pre-exist. Hey, School of Skills, you see you there. Why don't you prove to us that the Son of Man in Daniel 7 pre-existed? Show us that. We'd love to see that. But you don't hit the link. You don't want to have a conversation, so probably will never ever show us that. Probably just going to keep talking in the chat, right? All right. You said that Enoch predates the book of Daniel. Nah, I said they're contemporary writings, contemporary to one another. Enoch does not predate Daniel. That's crazy. How does the book of Enoch we have today predate Daniel? How does it do that? Oh, you subscribe to Metatron? Oh, shoot. Yeah, that's probably what you subscribe to. That's a whole nother conversation. Let's get into it. We can get into that conversation. The link is right there. Click on the link and join. Click on the link and join the conversation. School of Skills. Click on the link and join the conversation, brother. Let's have a conversation. Click the link and join the conversation. What's your excuse for not joining the conversation? Wherever else you're doing, apparently this chat and this live stream is more important. Okay. So anyway, so the book of Enoch is instrumental in understanding the Son of Man concept and why Yeshua refers to that. So in Matthew, what is that? Chapter 16 or chapter 18? Let me get it real quick. So Matthew chapter 16, verses 13 to 17, where he said to them, who do men say the Son of Man is? So they're trying to identify the Son of Man. That's why when you see the Son of Man pop out everywhere, the Son of Man is what connects Yeshua to the messianic expectation of the Jews in the first century CE. The Gabriel stone also links and connects everything as well. This is the intricate puzzle with various pieces. I ain't going to say I got all the pieces, but I got the majority of them. And I'm putting it together, and I say, oh, they say, oh, show me where all of this stuff about Jesus is supposed to be. I said, did you study the Son of Man motif in the intertestamental period, starting with the book of Daniel, and understand how it came to be a Moshiach over time? Well, that's after the Tanakh. You're right. But did the Jews just die out because the Tanakh was closed with Malachi? No. The Jews still existed. The Jews still wrote, and the Jews were still reinterpreting their understanding of what was delivered to them by the Naviim, or the prophets. So the Son of Man, when you see Yeshua reference this term Son of Man, he is talking about that messianic figure. And then a process called Pesherim is attached to the Son of Man interpretation, because the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Yahad community, they ascribe Pesherim to the teacher of righteousness. The teacher of righteousness is the Son of Man. Okay. All right. All right. Let me fix this. Okay. All right. Okay, so watch this, y'all, right? I'm going to humor the brother. 2,000 years ago would take us to 25 AD, right? The book of Daniel was supposedly, this is according to scholars. Scholars put it anywhere between 175 to 150 BCE. That's the latest date that they give the book of Daniel. However, the book of Daniel is also given in much earlier date in which it was written, which would be during the Persian period, right? According to the book of Daniel, Daniel is near in both the Babylonian and Persian captivities. Okay, the book of Enoch. When the book of Enoch is written, it's pulling off an oral tradition, and it's laid down during the Grecian rule, when the Greeks was on the scene. That's when that was laid down. But it's pulling from an earlier oral source, an earlier oral authorship, and it's penning it down during the Grecian period. Prior to the Grecian period, you don't have a book of Enoch. I just want to make sure you're aware of that. That does not devalue the book of Enoch. I just told you, I hold the book of Enoch in high regard because there are elements of it that are key to understanding the Messiah. Elements of it that are key to understanding the divine counsel. Elements of it that are key to understanding Azazel, who the Israelites had to give a goat to in Leviticus chapter 16. They give one to Yahweh and they give one to Azazel. Azazel needs his goat. And we get from the book of Enoch, the reason for that is because it says, ascribe all sin to Azazel. That's what the text says. Now, this brother's saying Enoch is older. Nobody wants to Google anything. We want you to click the link and come on and have a discussion. That's what we like to have. GMO Yashar Banyamyan. Pros within, no. Pros is against, pros is towards. I wouldn't say it's within. Maybe if you have a lexical entry from a lexicon somewhere that may give an explanation for that or a source. But I don't see that from my studies. But if you can share a source with me that may help to support that, I'll definitely take a look at it, brother. Okay. Oh, you said the Thayer's lexicon. Ah, interesting. Yeah, I don't. In knowing the Greek, yeah, I'm not. That's not going to work for me. It's not going to work for me. All right. So I see we have a guest on stage, but before we get to the guest, let me get into the music thing real quick. Let me get this out the way, and then we'll continue on with the show until it's time for me to leave. All right. Again, hit the thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up button. Share this video on all social media platforms. Let's get the truth as widespread as possible into many households as possible, to many families as possible. All praise to the Most High. So let me get into the music thing. All right. I got to segue into this, right? So I've always been musically inclined since I was a child. I was a poet. I've won various state and national poetry contests. My poems have been published. And this is talking about when I was like 9 to 13. And then I think after 13, I kind of stopped. When I got into high school, I kind of stopped writing poems, but I was writing raps. I transitioned to music, rap music, right? When I was 13, 14. And I started writing raps. And then when I was 16, my parents got separated, and eventually they got a divorce. And when that separation happened, it hardened me a little bit. I started to go hang out with the wrong crowd. And then the stuff that I was rapping about, I was actually doing, right? So I started rapping, but I saw rap as an exit, not just from hanging in the streets, because again, I hung out in the streets by choice. I didn't grow up in the streets, right? My dad was a street ninja. He kept me and my brother sheltered from the streets. But then when he was gone out the house, the streets was open to us because we live right next to the projects, right? And then we was going to the school where YNs was all in the school. So we got caught up with that as an outlet for what was going on at home, because our parents was not telling us all the details to why they was getting separated. So we started to ourselves. So for a reason for that, like a form of an outlet, is to then go and say, F this, F whatever. I'm going to crash out, do whatever, and started to do the wrong thing. So I had that younger, nurtured, sheltered part of me that was a poet, that used to read a lot, used to excel in English, get awards and everything for English. I love poetry. I love what we call modern early English literature. I love Shakespeare, all of that, right? I was just a poet, right? And then that happened to me. I got into rap. Then I started rapping. Now, when I started rapping, I'm like, hey, if I'm going to do this seriously, right, I can't just be getting ciphers and start battling, which I was doing, freestyling and all that. I actually got to write songs. So I said, look, let me sit down, write some songs. So I sat down, write a few songs. First songs was, but then it started getting better and better over time, to the point where I then started writing songs for other brothers and sisters that I knew that wanted to be musicians, who were R&B artists, that were hip hop artists, that were pop artists. I started writing songs for them, right? Catchy songs and everything. Then I got into music production after that, right? And I started composing and making beats and all of that for artists. Back then, I went to City College for music theory, composition, and other, right? So anyway, long story short, music has always been in my blood, right? When I came into the truth, I wanted to do music, but I had writer's block, and Yah deterred me from music to do what I'm doing now, which y'all are witnessing now. And from there, I always desired to get back into music somehow, to have a music ministry, because music can witness to you in a way that I can't witness to you through the screen, right? Music has a way to get a hold of you. So when I got into the truth, I started listening to a plethora of different artists in the truth. As y'all know, we did the KHM, the Truth Works mixtape, volume 1, 2, and 3, where I wanted to showcase the talent in Israel and use the funds to put towards music endeavors, right? Fast forward from then until now, the past couple of years, I've been working with advanced LLM AI platforms and generative AI platforms. I work in IT. I work on development, programming, and other stuff, right? I'm proficient in Python. I'm proficient in PowerShell. I'm proficient in JavaScript, right? Which is some of the programming language that I've been exposed to. I'm proficient in APIs, and I use Postman for validation. I'm proficient in JSON, right? And then I started looking into these large language models, the LLMs, the generative AI, adaptive AI, and all other forms of AI, right? Because I had to work with these models for work. mostly in the finance sector and then on the application development sector side, right? So when I got exposed to it and I saw what it could do, and we talking about maybe 9 years ago, 8. Now I've been in IT since 2004. I've been in IT. So I've been in IT for a long time, right? We talking almost 20 years I've been in IT. That's crazy. Now I think about it. So when I was getting into AI, I was like, okay, this is interesting, right? This has potential to help our community do leaps and bounds. And I said, how can I put my creativity with the music and merge it with AI so I can produce a product that can uplift Yah, that can edify the community, and we can do this at a high rate of production with minimal downtime. How can we be more efficient, right? So I said, okay, let me start playing with these AI models and see what I can create, right? So I wrote some songs. I composed some tunes, like the just the rhythm, right? Um, and trying to find the right voice. I started playing around with AI, and I started to generate songs. I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And I realized that it was going to take some time to put a lot of polish on it. Even now, it doesn't have the final touches on it, but it's decent enough, right? It's above average, it's acceptable enough. But another 6 to 8 months, when I have the full polish on it, by the end of the year, we're gonna go crazy with this, right? And why am I saying this? You're gonna say, Devon, why are you talking about this? We don't care about this. Get back to the question and answer, right? The reason why I'm bringing this up is because I've created artists, artificial artists. I've created song names, song theories, a premise for a song, an idea for a song, an idea and premise for an album. I created an album cover, single covers. I created names for artists, the artificial ones. I give them a background, a story, right? And I started to share this on Patreon recently this week because I've been working on this for some time and say, okay, I want to get into music because I want to start a music label where I have organic artists because you can never beat organic, right? However, we can fill in the blanks and provide an alternative model for consuming music, right? For the edification of Yah and his people, right? So for Yah's edification, Yah's glory, right? So I said, okay, we have a lot of rap music and maybe some R&B style kind of music in our community, a lot of rap music, right? Even some sound like trap truth music, right? But I'm like, yo, we got to get back to worship, bro. Like, we are overly saturated with rap music. And I love rap. Don't get me wrong. That's my favorite genre, right? Well, it's one of my top 5 genres, right? But I was like, yo, we got to get back into worshiping Yah. We got to get back into the psalmist mindset and just go strictly into worshiping Yah. So I said, okay, let me take my creativity, let me take this AI tool and let me create something out of it. And that's exactly what I did. So I created 3 artists. So I created a pop album as well. Well, actually, I created 2 pop albums and a pop EP album. So I created 3 pop albums and I created an artist for that. Then I said, okay, I'm going to work on doing truth music. So I created an artificial artist by the name of Asaph the Psalmist. I created another artificial artist called Miriam Levi or Levi. Okay. I created an album for Asaph the Psalmist called At Your Mercy. Because if we're going to get into worship type of music, what is the best title for an album? One of the best titles you can name an album that exemplifies that notion. And At Your Mercy was it. So I did the album cover. I did that from scratch. It's not AI. I generated, put that together myself. The name of the artist, the name of the album, the name of the songs, and the songs themselves. I also created Miriam Levy. Now, the name of her album is Bitter Waters. Bitter Waters is a word pun, and it explains the essence of the album. The word Miriam, Mem Resh Mem, Miriam signifies sea of bitterness. So it's a word pun. It's a play on the name Miriam. And also, the bitter waters were what Israel was made to drink. And then Yah sweetened the waters. So this album represents the hardships, the difficulties, the challenges that we face in life, that we're made to drink the bitter water. But when we drink it enough and we're faithful to Yah, and he sees this devotion, then he will sweeten the waters. And that is the premise of the album that I wanted to be exemplified to the listener. So AI has allowed me to communicate these themes, to resonate these emotions in a way that I personally, myself, cannot do for several reasons. That I have certain limitations, right? Because I can't sing. I can't sing, right? That's my first limitation, is I can't sing. I can hum a melody and all that, but I can't sing. That's my first limitation. And two is time, right? I am not a full-time music artist. If I was, it'd be a little different. But I'm not I'm a full-time IT contractor. I have 2 IT jobs that I work full-time every day. I'm a full-time parent, and I'm a full-time overseer of KHM, right? And then I'm a content creator on top of that, right? When I can create content, right? So with all of that, I simply don't have the time. So I need a tool that when I do make the time, that the effort that I put in, right, can be extremely efficient. And so I decided that I'm going to contribute to the community by creating music through avatars, right? So I'm making the music on the background, but I need the avatars to kind of convey that as an end product to the end user. So I created that. I've also used AI to help organic artists get over writer's block, to inspire artists. When they hear a song, they say, wow, that inspires me. That brings this idea to mind. There's various artists, not only in the truth, but people that I know secularly, that I've used AI to help spark the flame to get them back out of that slump that they were in. Maybe there was an oppressive state, they had writer's block, whatever. I use it as a method or a means of inspiration to push those artists back on that path. So not only did I create the music as a passion project of mine that I want to share with the community, but I've also used that tool to move those organically in the truth who are musicians and push them to go further. So when people talk and give criticism about those who use AI because they themselves don't understand it, and everything today uses AI. So if somebody was to say, well, Divine, why would you use AI? AI is of the devil and all of that. I said, do you have a cell phone? Yes. Do you realize that the cellular network that utilizes AI on the back end? How do I know? Because I used to work for that industry. You have Facebook, YouTube, Google services, Apple, all of them use AI on their back end infrastructure. Did you know that? Oh, you don't. Did you know that their servers have MPUs in them? You know what an MPU is? A neural processing unit that's used to handle tops of information. So everything that you do today, when you interface in society, AI is there. Now, I've said this before, AI is going to be the end of humanity. Now, again, I'm not saying I'm a prophet. I'm just seeing AI is going to be the end of this society. People say, well, Devon, if that's the case, then why are you using AI? Because it's AI in the hands of the wicked, not the hands of the righteous. AI in the hands of the righteous is somebody like me that's able to produce a project that's going to give glory to Yah. That's going to inspire and encourage his people. That's feeding the flock. People outside of our community could care less about feeding the flock. They want to fleece the flock, not feed the flock. I have a t-shirt that I designed as well coming up, which just says, feed the flock, don't fleece the flock. And pretty much is the message against those who are taking advantage of people in our community, because a lot of people leave the community because of leaders. And I said, if you left the community because you had a bad experience with the community or because leadership fell or whatever, then you were in the community for the wrong reason. You're supposed to be following after Yah. If leaders are in place, you follow them to the extent that they follow Yah. If they're no longer following Yah, you just don't follow them anymore. That doesn't change your identity, and that should not change your devotion towards Yah. It's very simple. So I see people in these things for the wrong reasons. So anyway, with that being said, let me go ahead and preview for you some of these songs that I'm referring to, right? I want to preview some of these songs. And if you're interested in supporting the ministry, again, through the purchase of these songs, it's going to go towards me investing in better AI tools to further refine the music till it gets to a point where you can't even tell if it's human or not. But I'm going to be transparent and let you know that it is AI artists, unless I say otherwise. But we have a record label now. It's in the alpha stages. It's called Divine Light Records. I plan by the end of this year to have this into a fully fledged LLC. And we're going to start getting artists in our community, and we're going to refine them and shape them to the means of technology to bring their talents from this terrestrial realm to the celestial. We're going to go right through and exceed through the stratosphere. And one of the tools to help us to get to that point is AI. AI is only detrimental in the hands of the wicked. But in the hands of the righteous, it's a beautiful tool. Just like the internet. In the hands of the righteous is an awesome tool. That's how I'm able to talk to y'all. Y'all able to talk to me. But in the hands of the wicked, you have the dark web, deep web, all types of foolery going down there. People use the internet for nefarious purposes because of the wickedness in their hearts. When your heart is cleansed, when Yah removes the stony heart and gives you a heart of flesh, all your intent is going to be towards serving Yah and his people, to standing on these statute laws and commandments and following after the Messiah. That's how your life is going to be modeled. It's not going to be modeled about devising schemes like the book of Proverbs says. And even though as a righteous man you fall, you get up. But the wicked fall into contempt because they never get up. They fall and then they stay in that fallen state. No, we fall and we get up and we are in a standing state. So with that being said, those of you in the chat that have already heard this music, hit one. Put one in the chat. Let me know. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a few tracks for you. And then if you want to patronize, and shout out to my brother T2 Mando in the building, another great artist, organic artist in the building that I would love to work with when we get this whole thing fanned out. Shout out to my brother DB in the building as well. That's my brother on my team. It's one of the best managers in the game, Israelite Truth Music right now. And there's also 5 to 6 other brothers that I know who were in the world, worked in the gospel industry, the hip hop industry, the music industry in general. And they're just here in our community sitting on this talent, having no outlet to express this talent, right? I'm going to give them that outlet. Some of them are trying to do something in the truth. I'm going to help them get further. All praise to the Most High. So let's go ahead and play some of this music. And then after I play the music, some of the music. Whoa. After I play some of this music, let me see. Did I connect it? I'm going to show you where you can get it. It's going to be on the shop section of Patreon. Yes, sir. Shout out, salute to the commando in the building, man. You got to salute the generals when they walk in the building. Salute, King. All right, let's play some of this music. Then after I finish this portion, we'll transition back to the Q&A. All right, so let's play some of this music. Again, if you're interested, you can stream the whole thing on Patreon once you subscribe to one of our tiers, and or you can purchase it for download if you want. And the Patreon app has a player. So once you purchase the song within the app, you go to the top and you download it. And there's a little play button in the center, and you can actually play the music after you download it. So let's play some of this music. And again, I'm going to show you some imagery in the screen, but let's go ahead and play some of this music. Let's do this one. I'm going to do some of the Miriam Levi, right? Or Levi.
I was lost, but now I'm found. Your light leads. I was lost, but now I'm found. Your light leads the way. Every shadow fades away. In your arms I sway. I'm reborn. Your glory shines through me. With every breath I take, Lord, I'm setting my heart free. I lay my burdens down, no more weight to bear. In your presence, yeah, I find the strength to share. With open hands I come, surrender all I've known. Let your spirit pour, fill me, let it be shown. Increase in me, let my heart be free. Fill my cup, Lord, let it overflow to the ones around me, let them see the glow. We decrease, yeah, so your light can shine. With your love in our hearts, we will intertwine. Mellow. In the mirror, I see your face, Lord. In your light, my fears erase, Lord. Mold me in your perfect design. With every step I seek to shine, Lord. Yeah. Move me out the way, I was made in your image, drawn divine. Humble in my spirit so your love can shine. Circumcise my heart, take the stone away. Let me reflect you in all I say, yeah. In a valley where bones lie, silent and still, hope whispers softly, waiting for the thrill. Rise up, O children, heed the Lord's command. Put on flesh and armor, together we stand. Glory's in our sight, He calls us to the fight. Rise, O Israel, let your voices sing. With righteousness and love, let the praises ring. Stand tall in faith, Let his glory shine, a kingdom of priests forever we align. When the shadows loom and the doubts arise, I lift my head up high, gaze into the skies. With Yah by my side, there's no room for fear. In the depths of the storm, his voice is clear. Fear has no power, with faith as my sword. I stand unshaken, grounded in his word. If you be for me tonight.
This is the gospel song I created. It's crazy. It's called Guiding Light by Loretta Watkins. Fascinating.
No shadow can cast when you're by my side. In you, my love, Lord, I take my pride. You're the strength when I'm weak. My heart sings when you speak. God, you are my guiding light, shining bright through the darkest night. Worship you, my protector.
Now, that is just a sample of some of the songs. I have plenty more where that comes from. However, I did share some of those on the Patreon. And if you're interested, you can actually purchase them from the Patreon. So let me show this to you real quick before sunset hits, so that you are aware of it and you know exactly where to go. Okay. So all right. So if you go to the Patreon, let me go to it. Where's it at? And you can also do the same from your phone. If you go to where's that link at? All right. If you go to Patreon, right? Over here, it says shop. You're going to see the same thing on your phone. On your phone, you'll see the same thing. So if you go to the Patreon, you see where it says shop. You click on shop. And then when you go to shop, you're going to see different options, right? We have different things there, right? So on shop, you'll see we have 3 featured products. Rise, O Israel. That's the full song for the part of the song that I played earlier. There's the calendar. If you want to purchase the calendar, you can also get it through the shop. You do have to be a member at some point, even a free member. You can get access to purchasing this, but you can get the calendar through here as well. And then also you can purchase the introductory class for the KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible study classes, right? You can order that. And also you see here, this is the album art that I created from scratch for Asaph the Psalmist. I created this one, We Call on You as well, by Asaph the Psalmist. This is for the single, We Call on You, that I shared on social media, right? This is the album cover I made for Bitter Waters, right, for Miriam Levy. And this is the guiding light that I made for Loretta Watkins. And as you can see at the very bottom is a Divine Light Records label there. See that? So here you can go in here and you can purchase several things. You can purchase some posts that I have. You can purchase my academic blogs. It's about 15 of them. You can purchase the article suggestions library we have is 116 of them. If you're interested in Black Jews in Africa, we have 38 posts that go into the primaries and everything like that. That's a $50 purchase for that entire collection, and then we continuously add to it. Then I got 6 more posts that add to it throughout the rest of the year, so we'll be close to 50. If you're interested in the book library only, right? $100 gives you access to 531 books. If you was to add the manufacturer's suggested retail price of these books, all 531 of them, we're talking about almost $500,000+ for all those books, right? And then there's some other items I have on here. Like I have this wallpaper from the Descent for Greatness event that we did on the March of the UN in New York last year. Then I have this article on the works of the law that I kind of wrote out. Then it's a debate with me and Ife, etc. So go into the shop section. If you're interested, you can purchase one of these tracks, and you can also listen to it. You can download it and listen to it in the app. The app actually has a media player, and you can actually purchase all these songs and listen to all these songs right from the app, right? And this amount that you see here is really a donation amount that goes into producing more music like this, right? So I can see which songs you like and which ones I should make more of, right? But because of AI and my creativity that AI has blessed me with, I'm able to have a much quicker turnaround time in producing these songs, right? But again, like I said, there's still some more work to do. These songs are not on any streaming services yet because they still have to be mastered. So it has to get that polish on it. It doesn't have that yet, but once I'm able to do that, it will be on all streaming platforms, right? I do have some of the pop songs on streaming platforms, right? But anyway, so I just wanted to show this to you so that you can see that there's a shop section if you want to patronize more of what I do. So Divine Prospect is a brand within and underneath KHM. And so the Patreon is really the Divine Prospect brand under Patreon. Also underneath the brand, we have Jubilee Manumission, we have Natural Path to Eden, and then we have all the other programs and services that is offered underneath the KHM brand, like the Ezra Institute, which is the homeschooling network that we have, which is one example of the things. The Shua and Pua's Birthing Stool, which is the midwifery program we have under KHM, right? So KHM is just the parent umbrella ministry, but there are subsidiaries underneath that make up. So sometimes what I'll do through my personal reference through Patreon, I would use my Patreon to offer some KHM items in there as well, right? And even the classes that I teach, like the KHM Holistic Research Paradigm for Bible Study, that's really a KHM sponsored session that I just teach, I facilitate, right? So it's not specifically part of my brand, but because I teach it, that's the place that we keep it for people to access it, right? So it's a little bit of breakdown of what we do at KHM, how that system works and so forth. So just let me know. All right. All right. So shalom, Tiffany Smith. I see you. Thank you so much for your patronage and support. I appreciate it. Trust me, you will enjoy those songs. So if y'all want some worship music in time for the Shabbat, this is the best opportunity to do so. And also share the links for these as well to other people so they can also patronize the music and it can go into the R&D and creating more music, right? So the Bitter Waters album is an EP, so it's only going to have 6 tracks on it. Same thing with the At Your Mercy. There's only 6 tracks on it. These are EPs. Again, the purpose of the EP is to kind of just generate something, right? So I can get user feedback or listener feedback and use that data to kind of direct it towards future endeavors in creating music, right? So I'll put all the tracks up there for the EP for both albums. I don't know who in here likes traditional gospel music. I've kind of strayed away from that because I like music that has Yah's name in it and talks to Israel, right? But I still like gospel music. I ain't gonna lie. I still like some gospel music. But if you're into that, right? Again, I can finish the Guiding Light album from Loretta Watkins. I can just finish that, you know, if you're interested in that. But I try to offer that variety of worship type music so we can use it to taper off and balance, you know, all the rap music we have in the truth. You know what I'm saying? So if this is something that you guys like and you're interested in, let me know. My brother, the Black Carib, Shalom, hey, call me ASAP. I want you to come by, swing by tomorrow. We have some visitors coming by my crib for the Shabbat, and I would love for you to come and join as well, bro. All right, Doc. So call me, text me ASAP. You're invited. Okay. All right. All right. So let's transition with the little bit of time that I have left before my family pulls into the driveway. Let's get back into the question and answer. And thank you for your support. I appreciate it. Again, go to www.patreon.com/divine prospect. Also, that PowerPoint that I'm working on in regards to pre-existence in the book of Colossians. Keep checking that. I would say maybe every other day I'm adding new and more slides on it until it's completed. And then I'm going to do the presentation. I'm also doing finishing up the ye know not what ye worship. And that goes into the worship of the Father and Son. Are they the same? Are they distinct? Very, very in-depth lecture that I'm proud to put out, but I'm still working on that as well. I'm working on actually like 6 or 7 different PowerPoints at the same time, which is crazy. And this is why I'm never able to finish everything. My mind goes in a million creative directions at one time. Right. But nonetheless, other questions, if you have it, let me see what you got. Jadon Israel. Sure. Let me do that. All right, my brother. No problem. Yeah. Text or call me and please come through. You and your Isha and your family, please come through. I'd love to see you again. We was actually speaking about you the other day. Smoke Willow DP. Is it unlawful to eat things with like shrimp filler in them, like Roman noodles, the shrimp kind, or should I only stick with beef and chicken? Well, I don't recommend you eat any of those ramen noodles because they are not healthy. If you want a healthy alternative to ramen noodles, and again, the shrimp that's in there, I don't know if it's real shrimp or not, if it's filler, if it's substitute shrimp. I just wouldn't trust it, and I would leave that alone altogether. However, I can't be a hypocrite and say that with a straight face. So I did a post, what was this, like 4 years ago, something like that. I did a post where I went to in vegan, and I forgot what the other spot was. What's the other vegan spot? I forgot the name of it. And I bought a shrimp substitute sandwich and shrimp balls, and I was eating them and I was taking pictures, and I said, will I be judged for this, right? Yo, I had hundreds of comments, interactions with that post. It was crazy. And then I told people, I said, y'all really think I'm eating shrimp? Of course not. I had to show the receipt. I had to show the video of me going to actually get the food and everything like that. But I did that to get a reaction, right? Because it was something I was promoting at that time. So I did it to get a reaction. But I would say if it's something that you know for certain is not advertised as vegan, I would leave it all the way alone. But if you want to substitute, and this is for anybody out there, you should not be eating no ramen noodles. The ramen noodles that you get, like cup of noodles and stuff like that, I used to love those things. And then I realized how bad they are for your health. So I was able to discover a substitute, and I discovered it in Kroger in the section, the ethnic section, right, for kosher foods, right? It's called Tradition. That's the brand. So what I'll do is I'm going to share a link. If you want to order them, you can get them from Kroger. If you have a Kroger in your city, some people don't have a Kroger in their city. If not, you can order them from Amazon, and they are 100% better than the trash that comes in the ramen noodle. Do not eat that stuff, please. Here, I'm gonna share that with you. Click that link and eat things that you know for certain are kosher. You ain't got to worry about second guessing it or whatever the case may be, and that are also healthy for you. Okay, so it's right there in the link. All right. So let me bring my brother on. Hey, there was another guest that was in the back. I don't know if it was School of Skills. The link is in the chat, School of Skills. You can always come on this panel and talk because you have the most to say in the chat. I want you to also say it right here on the live stream. Shout out to my brother, Get Wise in the building. Shalom. All right. I see what you're saying, Truth for More Truth. But let me bring Jadon on real quick.
Man, hold you on, mean brother. It's okay?
I gotta put my speaker back. Okay. All right. Shalom.
Shalom, shalom, King. You mean to tell me that cup of noodles is not kosher?
Nah, bro.
Oh, come on, man. I grew up on a cup of noodles and hot sauce. Oh, man.
Me too. I can't tell you how many of those things I ate, and I loved every second of it too. I ain't even gonna.
Oh, man, you got to drink the juice too. You know about it when you drink the juice.
Mm-hmm.
You put the hot sauce in there, you leave the ring around it. You leave the ring around a cup of noodle.
It's a wrap. Fact. What's going on, King?
Man,
shalom.
Yeah, I got a shalom to you, King. Long time listener, first time caller. I want to be brief because I know you over like almost over 2 hours in this live stream.
Yeah.
But I want your interpretation on this verse. Okay. Now, this verse, I want to go ahead and give the credit. The first person who brought this to my attention was from Zarishadai ben Yehuda. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah.
Yes. I listen to him all the time.
Great pillar in the community.
Absolutely, a legend. From B'nai Zakim, from B'nai Zakim, Salika.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I listen to him all the time. Like to be honest with you, every Shabbat I listen to him. Mm-hmm. And he brought out a gem that I did not realize, and I want to hear your interpretation. Okay. I'm really hoping that you go below the shot level. That'd be great.
Okay, let's see.
Okay, so Zarishadai, I want to give the elder the credit. He's the one who brought it out. He said that Noach, the ark, the Teva, it had one window.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
with that.
So yeah, I'll bring up the verse, or you can bring it on screen. That'd be great if you could share the screen. That way we can look at it.
Yep. If you have the verse window, you know what verse you want me to go to.
I know you can go to Blue Letter Bible and type in window, and I'll show you. Just type in go to Blue Letter Bible because I use it all the time.
Yeah, hold on one second.
I want your interpretation on this window.
Yeah, so we got Genesis chapter 8 verse 6. It says, let's see what it says. Let me share the screen.
Like Noah built the ark or built the window or something like that?
Well, he was going out the window right here. Okay. All right. So this right here says, let me close this.
No, that's not it. It's before that.
Window. Okay, before this.
Yeah. Okay. Go KJV. I don't care about the version, but just KJV because I think you can find it.
All right, just add here. All right. Let me just go back to the chapter.
I think it's Genesis 6. This is when he's building the Teva.
All right, so let's go back. Yeah, Genesis 6 is when he's getting the instructions on what to do. Okay.
Yes. And there's a mention of the window, and I like to read it in Ivrit, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
The Ivrit.
All right. I
wonder if I could blow this up so I can see it.
Oh, you have something on your screen? You want to share it?
Oh, well, I like to read it and show you, but goodness, I'm looking at your screen. It's hecka small. You know what? Here, I'll do this. I'll go on my other laptop. I'll read it from the laptop while you get it. But yeah, Genesis 6. If you go ahead and pull up the Bay Ivri. Okay. Can you pull up Genesis 6 on Blue Letter Bible? No time right here. Okay. 6. I won't be long. I just want your interpretation on this.
Yeah, you good.
Below the Peshat level. The plain level. And it's coming up right here. Yeah, Genesis 6. Genesis 6:16.
6:16.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes.
Hold on 1 second. Genesis 6:16.
Finally got on. I'm finally on. I'm speaking to the divine prospect.
All right. So yeah. Okay.
Hallelujah. So hard to say la teva wa el amar Watal lena mil ma'ala u vetach ha teva batsida tasim taktim shanaim or shanim u shalishim ta'aseha. So what I want to focus in on is the first word right there. So ard. You see that word so ard? Now
that's
in English,
window, make an opening. Yeah.
It translates as window, but I got to give the credit to Nasik Zarishadai Ben Yehuda. He says, when you click on that word so hard, it translates as window only one time. When you look at the concordance, you go to so hard, you click on it. It's only window one time. Now, other translations, you're going to, in other translations of the word window, you're going to see different Hebrew words.
Correct.
So like when you click on that word so hard, it's only translated as window once. And I find that to be very fascinating. I think there's something esoteric here. I think there's something our ancestors is telling us something, that there's some type of message that's below the Peshat level. Because normally when you click on that word so ard, it's used as a noun talking about noon or midday.
Yeah.
Right. And also too, I mean, you have, there's the Zohar, which talks about which speaks on in regards to the Kabbalah. But when you look at this word so hard, it's only translated once as a window. Now, when you jump to that verse that you were talking about, Genesis 8, I'll go ahead and get it. I won't share it, but I'll just read it. It's a different word. Like when you go to Genesis 8, what is it? Genesis. It was the one that you had. I think it was the one where he left. He left. Genesis 8. But it's a different word. It's, the word for Hebrew is halon. Halon for window.
Genesis 8 and the one I pulled up?
Yes, sir.
So that's 8:6.
8:6. Okay.
So
yes, Wahi Makates Audaba'im Yom Way Yiftach Noach es Halon. There go that word Halon. Hateva Asher Asa. So what I want to focus on, King, is that word Halon. That's usually window is usually Halon. It's not so ard. So when we go back to Genesis 6:16, I like your interpretation. What is this window? What is this? Is it a light? What is it? Like, could you expound on that out?
Yeah, so I know when we get to the Sud level, there's a variety of different interpretations, especially when we see it from the Gemara, right? The Gemara speaks specifically on this as well. And so does Ramban, right? So here, where it says make an opening, right? The key thing is, what is the purpose of the opening that's being made? Why is this thing being made? Why is this happening, right? So we'd have to look up the follow-up words right here. So we have, let me pull it up real quick.
I say move.
Right. So he says make what the opening for what? Tabach, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, for
this opening has to do with the construction of the ark, because this is the context, right? So the key thing is he physically making something? If he's physically constructing something, then that means all the elements that's being discussed, at least on the surface level, has to refer to the construction of this ark, right? So he's now at this is what, verse 15, right? He says what the dimensions should be, right? And then after dimensions are created, now he's saying to make, what we see is make a opening or make a midday noon, right? Make something, which is referred to as a hapax legomenon, right? So a hapax legomenon, which you see here, is something that only occurs one time in the Tanakh, right? It doesn't occur anywhere else, and or its semantic range is limited to mean one particular thing in one verse, but it never reads or means the same thing elsewhere. When you come across these nuances, and when rabbis come across it, the light bulb goes up. They say, wait a second, why is this being used like this here?
Right.
Yet elsewhere, it means like the rest of the range of that meaning is something completely different. Well, the key thing is this is an archaic usage of this term. So when you see an archaic usage of this term, it fell out of usage when this was being put together by the initial author. And then by the time goes by, the term itself then takes on a different meaning over time based on its usage. We see this from early to late biblical Hebrew. We see a transition of the uses of terms, words, and definitions over time, right? But here, if we were to look at it from, let's say, and this is why I will go into like the BDB, only because the BDB compares it with other cognate roots. So let's go to the BDB for this real quick, because we're going to see how it's used in, let's say, Arabic, or if it's used in East Semitic, or if it's used in Ugaritic, right? Because that would help us get more of that understanding of what we call the linguistic gloss, because that's what that is, right? So that's Genesis chapter 6 and verse 16. Let me pull up the BLB.
It says like probably roof. I'm already there.
Correct. You already know. Okay. You already know. Right. So hold on.
I use the BLB all the time.
All right.
Especially the BBB. Yeah, especially the Brown Drivers Bridge. But yeah, go ahead, Doc.
Let me hold on. Let me bring it up real quick. All right. So Zohar, right? Let me pull it up.
Yeah, probably roof compare Arabic, Syrian.
Hold on. Let me share my screen. I got the wrong screen up. Hold on. Let's see. It's all right here. All right. There we go. All right. So as you can see, it's typical usage as a masculine noun. Now we're getting into gender, right? Not person, number, but we're dealing with gender.
Yes,
when it's a masculine noun, it means what? Noon, midday, right? When it's a feminine noun, it can refer to something other than noonday. Because here's the thing. What was the purpose of windows in ancient times and roofs in ancient times?
I'm listening, Doc.
Twofold. Number one, it was designed so that the light can come in and it can wake the user up when they go to sleep. So that was the purpose of that cutout feature there. Because otherwise, if you make a mud brick house, right, or one of the 4-room houses that you see, and you have no windows, right, you won't know what's going on outside. Because typically you have a heavy cloth covering the front or a door, and you can't see outside. So typically, in order to regulate a day-night cycle, there will be a cutout there to let in the light, right? To let in some form of, I would say, an environmental factor that would let a person know what time of the day it is, right? And even if it's the noonday is typically when the sun burns the hottest, right? To actually indicate to them when it is time to take a break as well, right? Because when it's noonday, because it's the hottest, typically during like this time of year, when we're transitioning into the spring, it's there as an indicator to let them know the temperature and also the light. The light sometimes also is used to wake them up during the morning time. So today we have like alarm clocks and stuff like that. They didn't really have those back then. So they used the light to do that, to determine that it was time to wake up, right? So see the usage of it over time. So we can see that when this term is used in construction, it is indicating an opening to let in light. Because in the ark, that would make sense, right? Because they didn't have any other environmental factors that help them to determine when time is passing. So you need a roof or you need an outlet to some kind of opening to indicate day-night cycles. Because otherwise, the way that it was pitched with the type of gopher wood is that's controversial in regards to what kind of wood was.
Yeah, we don't know exactly what that is. Gopher wood.
But the pitch itself, the pitch itself would blacken out any light. So you want to be able to count the days. Remember, when the flood is occurring, he's counting time, right? So after 40 days, he'd have to know that 40 days had transpired. How would you know that if there's no opening? There's no way.
You need opening. You need some light.
Right? So now again, that is the Bashat level, right? Now we get a little deeper.
That's now we're talking. Let's go.
It can mean a variety of things, right? So it can talk about the building of man and his highest sephirot, that is utilized to open up his knowledge and understanding to the Most High Yah, right? Which I've had a conversation with what's the rabbi name? Lebowitz. And this was back in 2017. He's a Kabbalist, and we had a conversation about this. And he told me, he said, hey, you should have an opening like Noah's Ark to allow the light of Yah to shine in. And I'm like, what are you talking about? An opening? He was getting into something completely different from off the text itself. Right. And then he started to explain to me, and that's why I started to learn a lot more of the Zohar side of things, right, and how it's interpreted, and didn't, scoff at it. But in that kind of sense, and where when we create or we build ourselves, we must have an opening for Yah's light, his order to shine on us, right, to indicate or to elevate or to enlighten us, right? So that's one of the meetings that was given to me in regards to how that is being interpreted. Now, I didn't have to read it in context. He just proof texted and he built something off of it. And I was like, what? And then I went in to go look at it. And I'm like, oh, I see what he's saying, right? Mm-hmm. Now, here's my perspective against that. I love that stuff because it gives you a deeper sense of meaning behind the text, right? And even this word here, Zohar, looks very similar to Zohar, right? It's a cognate, right? Similar cognate, right? Where it's referring to enlightening, right? Bringing in light,
it's
right?
The same root. It's the same shade.
Same cognate, right? So when you see that, and it gets back into that understanding of the enlightenment in which the Ein Sof reveals to us through his Sephirot, right? In the Et Chazim Chaim, the tree of life, right? It is designed for us to look deeper, believe what the text is saying, and understand more about the creator, right? And I think what happens is when we get too stuck or too rigid with just the surface level, a lot of times people get turned off from the text because they feel there's no depth to it. So I don't mind engaging in those conversations, but what I try to stick with first before I get into those conversations is the context, right? Immediate context, the usage of the word. Where do we see the word elsewhere, right? So if we go here in the Brown Driver Riggs to try to look up and see, okay, do we see a cognate elsewhere? Well, yes. If we compare the Arabic, the Assyrian, and the Tel Amarna back, which would be your East Semitic, you'll see that it also indicates a light or a window. So the interpretation is this not simply for understanding it internally within Hebrew, but also looking at sister languages and seeing how that is used in those languages. So in the Tel Amarna tablets, or the city of Tel Amarna, and the tablets that was found there that was in Akkadian, we see a usage meaning back. The Assyrians and in Arabic, you see a very similar word for Zohar, which means light or a window. So in construction, we're not going to say that it means day or noon time, because how can he create a day or noon time, in the ark? That sounds crazy. That doesn't make any sense, right? However, if he is creating an item so he can determine when it's noon, so that light can shine through, it would make sense that would be part of the construction, so you can count the days to know when the 40 days are over with, right? So there's different ways I can go. Again, on this channel, we don't really delve too much into the sud level of things, but I don't mind having those conversations offline, right? That's typically where I keep it. Here, we really deal with more of the surface level and trying to interpret it based on the context, looking into sister languages, and also culture and history to try and derive an understanding that is parallel, right, with a partist level of interpretation, right? So that's how we function a little bit over here. But I appreciate that. Now, what I would like before you get off, give me your insight, brother, because I learned from others as well. Share with me.
Yeah, I don't want to jump out the window and say nothing crazy.
You got it.
Yeah. See, Nasik, he dropped the gem. What I like about Nasik,
hey, share that video with me too. When you get a chance, email it to me.
Oh yes. He's on every Friday night. He breaks down like gems within the week's parasha. I know some Israelites follow that annual cycle, some don't, but to each his own, right? So but yes, if I was to jump out the window, out the Zohar, if you will, if I was to jump out the Zohar and give an interpretation, I think it has to do with something about Yah's divine presence. Maybe it's like a reference before. See, I hate to say this because people are gonna look at me crazy, but I'm gonna say it. Like, you've heard of the phrase, Shekinah glory, or Shekinah, or the dwelling, even though that's not found in the scriptures, that term. But I think this has to do with maybe, I don't know, the pillar by day, fire by night, the Shekinah glory, the Shekinah, the dwelling. And I find it fascinating that the word is feminine, by the way. And a lot of times, a lot of feminine nouns, they're abstract, where in masculine nouns in Hebrew, in Ivrit, you just took them. Exactly. Exactly. So I found that fascinating. And that's why I was just like, there's something abstract here. There's something that's deeper than just the Peshat level, the plain level. So that was my thinking. But if I was to jump out the window and put on my tinfoil hat and sound crazy, it's not tinfoil, by the way, but if I was to put on a tinfoil hat, I would say this is like I don't know, maybe like typology, or like a reference to the divine presence of Yah, like similar to like the divine Shekinah glory, as you will. That's all I got.
I mean, that's good, and that's a start, right? Because as you can see, when you go into the commentary, the midrash on this, there's a ton of interpretations on what this could be, right? And I don't throw this out simply because I have a particular position. I consider it, and it does bring some insight to those who thirst after this type of knowledge that keeps them coming back to the Creator, coming back to the Most High, and getting deeper in fellowship with Him. You know what I'm saying? So I never negate or gloss over that side. It has its place, right? But if I was looking at it concretely, which is how I normally would deal with it, concretely, it means something. And with the masculine gender, with the feminine gender, it means something else, like you said, and it's open for interpretation, especially if it's in the feminine, because of the abstract nature of how gender declension works with Hebrew words. So yeah, I mean, literally can mean back, roof, window, right? If we're looking at it as a cognate with other Semitic languages, but then there's a deeper understanding to it, because this is something that was a focal point that he wanted Noah to focus on in the construction of building this. So it's also showing us that when we're building something, in order for us to allow the Shekinah glory to, or the kavod of Yah, right, to emanate towards us, we have to leave an opening in that construction of self, right?
Yeah, because it just reminds me, just like real quick before I sign off, it just reminds me because, like, the family, the 8 people, they're in the ark. They're in the Tevah, which is the same word in Hebrew for Moshe. What Moshe was in the Tevah, like he wasn't in a basket. He was in the Tevah. To be accurate, I mean, that was a word.
That's what it says.
Yeah, Moses was in the ark. He was in the ark, and then, like, for the waters, 150 days, it was it was water upon the earth. I'm looking at that as like this, like a purification process. It's a purification process, and then the 40 days that represents like transformation, to come into the womb and be born again, to come out of the womb. So like 40 represents like transformation. It represents rebirth. So I'm thinking, while they're in the ark, they're going through a transformation, a spiritual transformation. They're going through purification. The world is being purified, and there's a new beginning. And number 8, there's 8 people, which represents a new beginning. It represents abundance. And you have the number 7 reference as well, like 7 days throughout the story, which represents completeness. So I don't know, I'm just looking at this like, man, is this like some typology going on? Is this like I just see like there's some similarities with Noah and Moshe. And that's why I'm like connected. I'm like, there's something deeper here. I'm like, they use that word Zohar once, and only once. Because Rishadai just gave us the homework, but he didn't give us his soul level answer though. He didn't jump out the window. He wanted us to jump out the window.
If you're a good teacher, you never do. You leave up to the student. You said, look, I'm gonna point you in the right direction, but you gotta go and travel this thing yourself. You know what I'm saying? So he is a good teacher. So I can never take that away from him, right? All props, honor to that brother, and double honor to him as I can for the work that he's done in the community. You know what I'm saying? So all praises. But yeah, thank you for coming on and sharing that. I mean, that's great insight. I hope somebody can take that, and if this is your thing, use it to edify yourself and look deeper into Yah's Devar, his word. You know what I'm saying? And let it become a part of you, and it'll teach you how to truly build yourself, not in speculative and operative masonry, right? In the secular sense, but the building of self, right? The body as a temple, and where Yah's kavod is to dwell, right? Because we are his tabernacle, right? So all praises, brother. Thank you so much for sharing.
In all closing, you gotta come on my channel. I love to have an interview with you. I love to have an interview on my audience.
I've seen several videos of yours. When are you free? When do you do your show? When's your availability? When is it?
Yeah, I go live every Tuesday at 5:30. Yeah, the name of the show is Real Talk Tuesday. We keep it a buck.
Yeah, I could go on here. You free this Tuesday coming up at 5:30?
At 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. I'm out in California.
Oh, so it's like 8:30 my time. Yeah, 8:30 p.m. my time, right? I'm in Atlanta, so that's Eastern Standard Time. So I think it's a 3-hour difference.
Yeah, but you have my email though. Just get back with me as soon as you can, and yeah, we'll schedule a date that works for you and for me.
Okay.
Because we're both extremely busy. We got, I know you have so much going on. I got so much going on. So
exactly.
I don't sleep. I don't sleep.
You don't sleep. I don't sleep. What are you talking about? What is sleep? I don't even know what that is.
I do with Nas. I don't sleep because sleep is the cousin of death. I tell my wife that all the time.
That's all I do is nap. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
All right. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much for your time, man.
Baruch Hashem Yehovah Eloheinu. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom. Good brother right there. I appreciate his time being on the show, seeing some of his material. Very consistent brother. Good brother. Ara, why are you saying that, Ara? Yo, Ara's hilarious, bro. All right, hold on one second, y'all. Yeah, his channel name, I think, is Jadon Israel. I think that's it. That's his channel right there. Shout out to my brother Rumi Dia in the building. Shalom King. Avery, what's going on? How do you prove Jesus was a so-called black man using the scripture? I can't prove that Jesus was a black man because that term black man didn't exist. You have brothers say Niger is where we get nigger from, right? Well, Jesus was never called Niger. Jesus wasn't called that. So this idea of black man, even today, we call ourselves a black man. What the hell is that? What is a black man? Right? That's a societal term, a racist, an archaic racist societal term or label as a byword placed on people who descend from what we call Israelites within the continent of Africa. So I can't prove to you that that term black was used of Jesus. What does it say that? Well, we know Jesus was a man of color. We know that Jesus was probably darker than me. We know that much from the research that's been done. Matter of fact, I have a book on the Patreon that says, what color was Jesus? Go on to Patreon, check that out. Very interesting read, very scholarly work, very interesting read. But I can't say that he was a black man the same way that I'm called a black man in 2025. I can't prove that. I can't prove that, but I can prove he was a man of color. That's easy to prove. All right. Okay. No problem, Lamar. I'm glad you found it, brother. No problem. Okay, let me see. Hey, School of Skills, brother. Please click the link. I'm gonna say it one more time, brother. Okay, I'm trying to be patient, trying to be kind, trying to exercise the fruits of the spirit with you, right? Try to bear with you. Click the link and let's have a conversation. Okay, you can say all of that when you come on the show. On the live stream, we can talk. Okay. All right. Let me see. Okay, this is an interesting question. Shalom divine and everyone. Do you think that Catholicism and Christianity is a continuation of the truth, since some people say that Paul and other apostles traveled the land to spread churches? Wow. Okay. So Catholicism and Protestantism are two different things now. They are united. So Orthodox Protestantism is united with Catholicism in regards to the perspective of the Trinity and the importance of the patristic sources. However, Catholicism holds patristic sources in the same regard as written scripture, whereas Christianity on the side of Protestantism sees patristic sources as subservient to scripture, right? And also the idea of Calvinism and Arminianism, right? In areas of Calvinism within Protestant Christianity. So there's differences in that regard. Now, as far as it being a continuation, I would say it's not a continuation of it. Of course, it's to be argued by Christian opponents, but I would say that the form of Christianity that represented the apostles, not Paul per se, that represented Yeshua and the apostles, was destroyed. So those Jewish Christians, they were persecuted out, and you had to choose and pick one side, either Judaism or Christianity. You can't keep Torah, subscribe to Yeshua as the Messiah. That's the middle ground. You get wiped out. There's a book that I share on the Patreon called Nazarene Christianity and goes into detail about this, right? So that third group, which that's my pedigree, right, is the actual continuation of that original movement. What we have today is not a continuation of that original movement at all, in any way, shape, or form. The earliest subscribers were Torah keepers who subscribed to Yeshua as the Messiah, as we see in Acts chapter 21, with James, the brother of Jesus, as the OG at Jerusalem amongst that community. Those were the original keepers or custodians of the movement, and they were stamped out. The Gentiles picked it up. They were able to thrive because they were multi-ethnic groups of people, and they were not a single or linear ethnic group like Israel. So it was much more difficult to prevent them from spreading this message in the way in which it was done, mostly from Pauline Christianity, from Paul's theology, because he was given the right hand of fellowship in Galatians 2 to go to the Gentiles or the Goyim, or the ethnos, right? So that was his ministry towards them. So much of Christianity today represents that faction, right? What developed from there. Now, Catholicism claims an unbroken chain of apostolic succession going back to Cephas or Peter, saying that he was the first pope, which that word does not exist in the Greek in the New Testament anywhere, let alone the English. He was the first pope because Jesus built the church on him, whereas Orthodox Christians who are Protestants say that it was built off of Peter's confession, not off Peter himself. And that's the divide between Catholicism and Protestantism. Another divide, right? Because the papacy's authority comes from a proposed unbroken chain of apostolic succession all the way to Peter, right? Which we know historically, we don't really see that historically because the chain was broken several times. But anyway, so nevertheless, that would be the distinction between the two. And neither of them represent authentic messianism, which would have been Torah-keeping Jews who subscribed to Yeshua as the Messiah. Does that mean it was exclusively to them? No. Gentiles can cleave, but the head of the church should always be Jews. Torah-keeping Jews. Paul was a Torah-keeping Jew, and he kept the Torah, as we see in Acts chapter 21, but he did not leverage that onto Gentiles because that's not even instructed in the written Torah. That's only instructed in the legalism of Judaism of the day. The Judaizers. Because they are leveraging something onto the Goyim who cleave unto those apostles who were Jews that is not instructed by Yeshua, nor was it instructed in the Tanakh to do. Isaiah 56 gives a great example of how Yah deals directly with the Gar, or the Bein Nakar, or the strangers. That's what the text says. So I don't agree with the fact that Christianity today is the best representation and or is a continuation of that original movement. I would say in order to find that, you have to find Jews who are keeping Torah and subscribe to Yeshua as the Messiah and see no conflict with one or the other. But they're able to harmonize that understanding, and they come from the pedigree of those who left that legacy behind. And that is the direction that I orient myself towards. Right. So that's my perspective on that. And that's a good inquiry. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. What's your thoughts on OT only? I have really no thoughts. OT only. If brothers want and sisters want to be Tanakh only, that's fine. Yah's going to deal with all of Israel. All of Israel is going to have an opportunity for salvation, right? All Israel is going to recognize the Messiah in the end times. So regardless, I have no qualms or no beef with anybody who's Tanakh only. The church fathers' involvement with writing the New Testament. Now, the church fathers did not write the New Testament. I'm not sure where that came from, but if you have a source for that, sis, please share. And all the inconsistencies in the belief and worship in Yeshua as far as what's written about Immanuel. All right, so that last part, I can touch on that briefly. All right, so hold on, let me adjust my light up here. Yeah, the battery's dying on my light. But anyway, let me address that. All right. So the inconsistency in belief and worship. So I have a PowerPoint coming up that is going to address the worship of the Father and the Son. Okay. Because a lot of people in the Israelite community, as well as Christianity, has this whole thing messed up. Right. So in the Greek, the word proskuneo represents a form of worship. It is to pay homage or obeisance to a superior, a dignitary, and or a god. Okay. So this can be done towards a person and a deity. The word latreu can only be done towards a deity. We see this consistently in the Tanakh and the LXX, and we see it consistently in the New Testament. Yeshua never gets latreu. He gets proskuneo because he is acknowledged as a great prophet. He's acknowledged as a Messiah figure. He's been acknowledged as a great rabbi. So he is paid homage as such. He is acknowledged in Matthew chapter 2 by the quote unquote Magi as the king of the Jews. He's also acknowledged this by Herod and Herod's council. They see him as such, right? So what he gets is similar to what King David would get, to what Solomon would get, which would be that shachar, right, in Hebrew, that homage, right, paid to them, being a dignitary, superior, etc., right? So the text is not inconsistent in that fashion because it is very careful in how it deals with latreu in the New Testament, and it is only in mention of the Father, Yahweh, Yahu, Yah, never of Yeshua or Yahushua. Okay. Now, in regards to this inconsistency about Immanuel, there is no inconsistency there. When we go into Immanuel, we're dealing with Perushim. Perushim objective is not to take out the context of the passage from its original usage. Again, the same technique is used at Qumran. I got a book in the Patreon called Perushim. Actually, let me drop it in the chat for y'all. Hold on. Okay, let me grab it real quick. Okay, let me put the title of the book in there. And let me grab it for y'all real quick. Where's the book? Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Where is the book? Where is the book? Oh, here it is. Pesherim. Copy. All right. Let me drop this in there for you so you can take a look at it, because that's what we see in Matthew chapter 1, where it quotes from Immanuel. So let's get into that real quick. And I'm going to probably close out on this, right? I'm going to, let me do this. And great question, by the way, sis. All right. First, let's get Yeshayahu or Isaiah chapter 7. And then I'm going to close out. Let's go to Isaiah 7. Let's share this. There we go. Okay, so Isaiah 7. And I'm going to show you a couple of things here. The first thing we're going to go is verse 3, right? And Yahweh said to Yeshayahu, go out and meet Ahaz, you and She'ar Yashuv, your son, at the end of the conduit of the upper pool on the highway to the washer's field. Here's the first thing right here, right? She'ar Yashuv, right? Let's go there, okay? I'm going to hone in on this right here. U She'ar Yashuv. So shuv means to turn. The yod could mean he will turn, but it's been turned into a name. It's a verb that's been turned into a proper name, right? So we have Se'ar Yashuv, right? Se'ar Yashuv, right? So this is what people call a prophetic name, right? There's a reason why this type of language is being used in Isaiah, because Isaiah's son represents something. He represents what he's named. So let's go. Let me show you this a little deeper. Let's go to Isaiah 7:3. Okay. Let's go into Isaiah 7:3. And this is going to be in the Blue Letter Bible. Okay. So here in the Blue Letter Bible, we see She'ar Yashuv, right? She'ar Yashuv, right? And it means a remnant shall return. A symbolic name for the son of Isaiah the prophet. Isaiah's son was given this name because as long as he's alive and that name is invoked, it represents that a remnant, a righteous remnant, shall return. This was part of Isaiah's ministry, right? Talking about the return of a remnant. That's why he was given that name, okay? So watch this, right? It starts first with that. Now let's move on from there. Let's go back. Okay. And then it says, verse 4, and say to him, be careful, be quiet, do not fear, and do not let your heart be faint because of these two smoldering stumps of firebrands at the fierce anger of Rezin and Syria and the son of Remaliah. Because Syria with Ephraim, the son of Remaliah, has devised evil against you, saying, let us go up against Judah and terrify it, and let us conquer it for ourselves, and set up the son of Tabael as king in the midst of it. Thus saith Yah Elohim, it shall not stand, and it shall not come to pass, for the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin, and within 65 years, Ephraim will be shattered from being a people, and the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is the son of Remaliah. If you are not firm in faith, you will not be firm at all. Verse 10. Again, Yahweh spoke to Ahaz, ask a sign of Yahweh, your Eloheka, or Yahweh Eloheka. It shall, let it be deep as Sheol, as high as heaven. But Ahab said, I will not ask, and I will not put Yah to the test. And he said, hear then, O house of David, is it too little for you to weary men that you weary my God also? Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Now remember, Isaiah's son is a sign to Israel that a remnant shall return. Ahaz now is fearful that Judah will be sacked, sieged, and taken over by the coalition in the north. Okay? Isaiah comes to him and says, ask Yah for a sign. He says, I will not ask. I don't want to test Yah. So Isaiah says, okay, Yah's going to give you a sign. Now remember, the sign, as we see, the sign bearers are children. Children are the sign bearers. We first get that up here from his first son. And then we see another child being born. Now, the text is not explicit whose child this is, but the child's being called Immanuel. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin, this word virgin here is Alma, which is a young woman of marriageable age, not a Bethulah. That's not what the text says. Okay. Shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Immanuel. See that? His name is going to be called Immanuel, and it's going to be a son, similar to what we see the son of Isaiah up here, right? Your son. You see that? The sons are bearers of these prophetic names, okay? Now, that doesn't mean the child cannot have another name, but this name right here is a sign. When a child is given this name, the name is a sign. It's not always meant to be a literal name, as we will see when we get to chapter 8. He shall eat curds and honey when he knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good. But before the boy knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land whose two kings you dread will be deserted. Yah will bring upon you and upon your people and upon your father's house such days as have not come since the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, the king of Assyria. Okay? So then he goes on to the rest of the prophecy. Okay? Now what we're going to do is jump to the next chapter, and I'm going to show you where this word Immanuel changes ownership. It's Isaiah chapter 8, right? But before we get there, then Yah said to me, take a large tablet and write on it in common characters belonging to Maher Shalal Hashbaz, right? Again, this is another prophetic name belonging to whoever this owner is, right? It says, and I will get reliable witnesses, Uriah, the priest, and Zechariah, the son of Deberechiah, to attest for me. This is your prophetic name. It is a bunch of verbs, I would say, verbal language that's turned into a prophetic name. Now watch verse 3. And I went to the prophetess, and she conceived and bore a son. Then the Lord said to me, call his name, Maher Shalal Hashbaz. Call whose name? Another son of Isaiah. So one of the rulings out that Immanuel in chapter 7 is not the son of Isaiah is because the text is very explicit on the two sons of Isaiah. The one mentioned in verse 7, She'ar Yashuv, right? Yashuv, and then Mahir Shalal Hashbaz, right? These are the two sons of Isaiah, and both his sons have prophetic names because both of his sons are signs. Then it says, for before the boy knows how to cry, my father or my mother, the wealth of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria will be carried away before the king of Assyria. All right. Now, keep this all in mind. This is all important. A young boy is getting a prophetic name. His prophetic name is a sign that will be completed in the lifetime of the child. Okay. Then it says here, actually, let's get this. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 8 and verse 1 in the Blue Letter Bible. Isaiah 8, verse 1. And this is what Christians mess up in regards to understanding the usage of this Pasharim or Pesharim, etc., that's used in the New Testament, right? They don't understand that. Because they don't understand that, they're taking Isaiah out of context, especially when they get to chapter 9, which is wow, incredible. They take that whole thing out of context. That's another prophetic name. All right, let's go to Isaiah 8, verse 1. All right, let me get down to it. Okay. Moreover, Yah said unto me, take thee a great scroll and write on it common characters belonging to Maher, Maher, Shalal Hashbaz, right? And also the footnote. The spoil speeds, the prey hastens, right? That's literally what the name means. We're going to pull it out here. Where literally, as you can see, it's spelled out, right? Maher Shalal Haj Baz. And we see swift is the booty, speedy is the prey. Pause. Right? This is what Isaiah is naming his son, because his son name and existence is a sign to the nation. This is important to understand this. Okay, let's keep going. Hey, what's going on, Gavin? Long time no see, Aki. Hey, Devon, which version of Logos is on Patreon? I'd rather support Mishpachah to get the program. Yeah, the version that we have on there is the beginning language version, I think it is. I think it is the silver package. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's the silver package, if I'm not mistaken. So go back and check it out. You should be able to download it. You'll be able to see it as well for yourself. Okay. All right. Let me get back to this real quick. All right. So, let me go back to, Blue Letter. Okay. So now we back here and we have this, right? Because this is going to happen. It says the wealth of Damascus and the spoil of Samaria. Again, these two things representing his name will be carried away with the king of Assyria. Now watch this. Watch this. Yah spoke to me again, because this people has refused the waters of Shiloah that flow gently and rejoice over Rezin and the son of Remaliah. Therefore, behold, the Lord is bringing up against them the waters of the river, mighty and many, the king of Assyria in all his glory. And it will rise over all its channels and go over all its banks, and it will sweep into where? Judah is the recipient of this. It will overflow and pass on, reaching even to the neck, and its outspread wings will fill the breadth of your land, O Immanuel. Now, is he addressing the son, the child in chapter 7? Or is this now a name that's being shifted and used of Judah? See, the application for Immanuel is not limited in scope to one individual. because this is prophetic language, is shifting and is changing. Verse 9, be broken, you peoples. This is who the recipient is. Give ear, all you far countries. Strap on your armor and be shattered. Strap on your armor and be shattered. Take counsel together, but it will come to nothing. Speak a word, but it will not stand. O Immanuel. That's what this should say. You see what they translate as God is with us? It should be O Immanuel. Take counsel together, but it will come to nothing. Speak a word, but it will not span. O Immanuel. Who is Immanuel here? It is the people of Judah. The sun, right, represents a sign of a historical event that's going to happen during the lifetime of Ahaz to give him confidence that Yah is still with Judah for the sake of his forefathers, David, and etc. But now Immanuel shifts over and represents Judah. And remember, Judah is now called Immanuel because while all this is going on, while Syria is coming in, sieging and doing everything they're doing, Yah's still with them. And he is still with them because what? Because a remnant shall return. So they're going to be preserved because a remnant has to return. Yah's still with them. This is a point in history where Judah thought that Yah left them. The nation thought that Yah was gone. And a prophet had to remind the king that Yah's still with you, and I'm going to give you a sign. So now we see all of this, right? We get to Isaiah 9 and verse 6, where Christians use this to say, oh, this is talking about Jesus because he's called the mighty God. No. That's not what's going on here, right? Let's go back to the blue letter Bible. And after I get to this, I'm going to jump right to Matthew, and I'm going to explain why Matthew is using it the way it's using it. Okay? Let's get into this. Actually, I can stay here. Let me go here. Let's go here so we can see it together. And it says, for a child, ki yeled yulad, right? For a child is born, lochnu bein nitan, a son is given. So the issue Christians have with this is that we have the pual perfect tense for the verb that we see is conjugated as yulad. Then we see the nifal perfect tense for the verb that's used as given, nitan, right? So when we see these things, it indicates that this child, the yeled and the bain and the son is already here. He's already there. Then you have Christians say, oh, this is the prophetic perfect. There's no such thing as a prophetic perfect. Stop. Well, maybe in one or two cases, but this is not the case here. Whoever this child and his son is, he's already on the scene. He's already born. It's not referring to Christ at all. And then he's given a prophetic name. And the same way that Isaiah's two sons are given prophetic names, and the child that is assigned to Ahaz is given a prophetic name. Chapter 9 continues the same thing. What is the prophetic name? It says, Vayikra Shemoh, and his name shall be called Pele, Wonderful, Yoes, Counselor, El Gibor, Mighty God, Abiad, Sar Shalom. It should really say Pele, Yoes, El Gibor, Abiad, Sar Shalom. That's the name. Similar to Immanuel, similar to She'ar Yashuv, similar to Mahar, Maher, Shalach Hazbaz, right? These are all prophetic names that are given to a child, a son. This is not calling this individual a mighty God, an everlasting Father. No, this is a prophetic name because of what he represents. What does he represent? That he will have the government on his shoulders. He will be carrying Israel politically. And he's going to be given a prophetic name as a sign that he is the one that is going to rule Israel. And historically, this is attributed to Hezekiah. This has nothing to do with Jesus here. because we don't see the New Testament quote this about Jesus as Pesharim or Pesharim. We do see, however, what we saw earlier. So now let's get into the Isaiah 7 situation, right? Remember, it says that an Alma is going to be the one responsible. So let's go back to the Alma, right? And it says, therefore, Yah himself will give you a sign. Behold, the Alma shall conceive. Whenever an Alma conceives, there's no understanding and no precedence in Tanakh that is not without a man's interjection. I don't care if people tell you that Isaac was born of a virgin birth. There's no virgin birth in the Tanakh. Sorry, it's not there. There's no virgin birth in the Tanakh. With that being said, when we see the Alma shall conceive, the young woman shall conceive and bear a son. So the language here tells you that this is not no precedent of a virgin birth. Ha'alma hara weyo ledet vein wekarat shemo Immanuel. You even see it here. They translate it as shall become pregnant. We say like shall bear, right? Hare, to conceive. This always has to do with a woman being inseminated with sperm and getting pregnant and bearing a child. That is what the text is saying. We see this usage here in Genesis 38, right? Where it says somebody's with child. And I am with child. A woman with child so that she gives birth. Exodus 21 and 22. We know it means pregnancy. And shall bear a son. Weyoledet. Shall bear a son. This is a qual participle. A qual participle. Right? So it is making it adjectival, giving it some verbal properties. Right? Taking a noun, giving it verbal properties. Taking a verb, giving it noun properties, or creating an adjectival noun. Right? But when you have this term bear a son, this always refers to a woman who was inseminated with sperm and gave birth to a child. Okay? This is not a virgin birth. This is not a Betula doing this, because the king is married and has children and probably will bear more seed after this. Isaiah is married and has children. None of their wives gave birth to a random child without them having something to do with it. So when we get to Matthew chapter 1, and Matthew uses Pesharim to interpret this, Matthew, the author, is not taking that out of context. Matthew is now looking at this and is applying something prophetic to Yeshua. Here it is right here. Matthew chapter 1 and verse 21. She will bear a son, and you will call his name Yeshua, for he will save his people from their sins. So the name Yeshua, his given name, Yeshua, represents salvation that he will provide for the children of Israel. Okay? She will bear a son. That same reference there in the LXX is going to link you back to what you see, bearing a son in Isaiah chapter 7. Again, the intention is a man is involved. However, the Greek twists this up and turns it into a literal virgin birth, parthenos, a literal virgin birth, right? That's a whole nother conversation later. I'm focusing on verse 23. All this took place to fulfill. So whenever you see to fulfill, it was fulfilled, that's Pesharim. That is the same technique that was used amongst the Yahad community in the Qumran caves that produced the Dead Sea Scrolls. And they would attribute this to the teacher of righteousness. They're not taking the Tanakh out of its natural and historical context. They're taking a feature set, a qualitative attribute that is ambiguous. And we know it's ambiguous because Immanuel is used in chapter 7 and in chapter 8 for two different entities. So it can be used and switched around to indicate when Yah is with his people and given a child as a sign. Yeshua is a child born as a sign to Israel that Yah did not forget his people and that his people will be saved from their sins. Yah will redeem them. So they're taking this and they're using this to indicate the sign or the sign name that Yeshua would bear, but he also has a personal name outside of that to indicate that he is Yah's representative, Yah's agent to bring salvation to his people, that he didn't leave his people, right? That he's going to redeem his people, right? So this is extremely important that we see this. And this is what the text means. There's no inconsistency here. Matter of fact, I show this to people all the time. This technique that I'm telling y'all, that I'm calling for y'all is Pesharim, is actually used in the Tanakh. Let me show that to you. I'm going to show you where somebody in the Tanakh applied Pesharim from Isaiah. This is not a new technique. Let me show it to you. Let's get it. Let's go. Let me go ahead and pull it up. We're going to end off on this, right? God is a racist. No, I wouldn't say that. That term racist is a modern nomenclature. I would say that Yah is ethnically covenanted with a particular people group. And that people group that he's ethnically tied to is Israel. Does that mean that other nations can't cleave unto Israel? They can. But he is epigenetically linked in covenant with the children of Israel. Ethnically, he is. So I wouldn't say he's a racist. He does prefer Israel because in times past, the firstborn was preferred over the secondborn and other children. And Israel is called Yah's firstborn. So they're preferred over every other nation. Hence why we get Devarim 7 and 6. But in the term as racist, I wouldn't say racist. That is a modern way of putting it, but I don't think it would have been understood that way and in that language in Iron Age and in the late Bronze Age. All right. So let me show you Pesharim. Let's go into Pesharim. Let's go to Isaiah chapter. Let's go to Isaiah 53 and 7, and then we're going to get to Jeremiah chapter 11, verse 18. Right. So let's go to Isaiah 53 and 7. And this is about the suffering servant, right? And I say the suffering servant represents the righteous remnant. You know, the same name that is given to Isaiah's son, a remnant shall return. The righteous remnant is the suffering servant. It is not the nation of Israel. It is not the nations as they deal with Israel. It is not Yeshua exclusively. Yeshua is part of the righteous remnant, being a prophet, being a Messiah figure. It's like the kings were also the righteous remnant, Josiah, Hezekiah, right? Just like the prophets were also a righteous remnant, such as Jeremiah and Isaiah. So what he's saying here, we know it applies to a prophet and the righteous remnant because a prophet claimed it for himself. Let's go into Isaiah 53. All right, let's jump down to verse 7. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that is before its shearers is silent, so he opened not his mouth. Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 11. This is one of hundreds of Pesharim in scripture, in the Tanakh. Jeremiah 11. And look at this, verse 18. Yah made it known to me, and I knew that you showed me their deeds, but I was like a gentle lamb led to the slaughter. I did not know it was against me. They devised schemes saying, let us destroy the tree with this fruit. Let us cut him off from the land of the living. More language from Isaiah 53. Let's go back to Isaiah 53. Verse 8, but by oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living. Who was applying this to themselves? Jeremiah. Jeremiah is applying the suffering servant verbiage to himself. That's Pesharim. He's saying it's being fulfilled with him. He's implying that it's fulfilled through him. He is just one of many representatives of the righteous remnant. Yeshua is also representative of the righteous remnant, being a Navi, a prophet that came to turn his people away from their sins and turn them back to Yah. So this technique did not begin with the New Testament. This technique did not begin with the Yahad community in Qumran. This technique was happening amongst the prophets, and we see it elsewhere within the Tanakh. And if you want, I could do a whole series to show you over 100 of these in the Tanakh. It's amazing. So, all praises. All right. So let's end off there. This is the longest I've probably been on a Freestyle Friday in a long time. But we're going to end off there. Again, family, thank you for watching. Thank you for being present with us. I appreciate it. We did 3 hours plus strong. All praises to the Most High Yah. We went over a plethora of different subject matters. Hopefully you were enlightened and empowered, encouraged, edified, and equipped for your journey in this walk with Yah and the challenges that are there. He will take you to the bitter waters so that you can drink and understand oppression. And this is what we learn from our Pesach and our Seder meal, right? It's the bitter waters. That's what the bitter herbs also represent, the bitterness that we faced while our ancestors were being oppressed in Misraim and their deliverance by the mighty hand of Yah. And so I encourage you to support our music ministry by purchasing the 2 tracks from Miriam Levi or Levi called Bitter Waters, because that would help with the R&D and completing that EP to give you something to think about in regards to Yah. And it's amazing. It's amazing what I really want to do in finishing that album. Thank you for your patience with me. Thank you for your understanding, Israel. I'm only here to serve our people. I'm only here to please Yah, not man. I'm going to give you what I received, and in hopes that it saves you time in your walking in your journey. There are going to be tools that are out there, but just because the tools is made doesn't mean the tool itself is bad. It's just who the hands the tool is in. And we see even in scripture that in the book of Joel and others, that swords would be beaten into plowshares, and the other way around, depending on the situation. An item can be tailored for good or for bad, for destructive purposes or for production purposes. So when we use AI here for this music, is to give glory to Yah and to give the people a voice to sing unto Yah, to invoke his kavod, his glory, and to be in his presence. All praise to the Most High, and to encourage Israel in the process, because this is a daunting walk and you can get discouraged at any point. And it's okay to make a pit stop, but the pit stop is never designed to be temporary. Keep that in mind. Yah's going to be with you in that pit stop. The purpose of the pit stop is to replace the things that have worn low, things that may have broken, things that need repaired. It's in the pit stop that you get everything that you need to continue the race. So cherish those pit stops where Yah has to slow you down and keep you still so that you know that he is Yah, as the psalmist says. Be still and know that I am Yah. And sometimes we need those pit stops in life to reflect. We need those pit stops in life to re-equip. We need those pit stops so that way we can understand that there's still someone by our side. Because when that driver goes in that pit stop, he knows he has a dedicated and loyal team that's going to get him back up and running and put him back on that racetrack. So I implore you to worship Yah in spirit and in truth, to seek the Father's face. And in the process of seeking the Father's face, he will reveal the Son to you. But you can only get access to that if you're obedient to his word and his commandments. All praise to Yah. Seek the Father's face and not his hand. For when you seek his hand, you only get what's in the hand. But when you seek his face, you get everything that's in his hands and everything that's in his heart. We have to get everything that we can with Yah. Empty your cup and allow him to fill you. So in that overflow, it can go on to others. Because the only way that you can love others, once you love the Lord, your power with all your heart, mind, body, and soul, is to allow yourself to be empty so Yah can fill you and love others through you as a conduit or a vessel of his ahav, of his love. Thank you. I appreciate that, family. Want to continue to support the ministry? Sign up for the Patreon, www.patreon.com/divine prospect. It's over 1,150 plus posts on the Patreon. I'm gonna add a couple more tracks also tonight before end of day, y'all willing. I'll add those additional tracks, and then I'll continue to work on these EPs until they're completed so that you have more to worship in. Let there be your voice to Yah to worship. All praises. Right? And then calendar is also available. So make sure you're getting your calendars as well. Email us at kingdomharbor@gmail.com, and or there should be a link in the chat, and or click on the link on Patreon, and or click on the link on the community tab of our YouTube page, and or you can get it from Facebook, because we have it in all these avenues for you to get the calendar. Everybody should have a calendar, and everybody should know the ancient pre-exilic Israelite method of reckoning time relatively. All praise to the Most High, Yah. Love you, family. I appreciate my 3 hours with you. Echad, one. All of us should be one, united together. We are each other's keeper, despite what the world says. This is not a solo walk. This is a communal walk. All right. If you don't have a community, join us. The link is in the chat. Sign up and join KHM and be a part of a community of Yah that is doing great things to build these future Goshens so that we are prepared for what's about to come. Hallelujah. All right. Other methods of support is in the chat. If there's anything that we can do to support you, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. I love you. Thank you. Wow. I love you, family. And thank you for watching. I'm getting tired, right? Exhausted from work, etc. But love you, family. Thank you for watching. I'll see y'all again. Peace, like we say, and shalom.